Hey, welcome back to another episode of Red Dot Forum Camera Talk. I'm David Farkas. I'm joined by Josh Lehrer.
Hey, everybody.
And producing the show and feeding us questions, as always, we've got Jose Rivera.
Hello, everybody.
All right. Welcome everyone who's joining us. Today is going to be, I think, a pretty fun and informative episode, unlike our usual.
That's right.
Yep.
For once, we're going to be informative.
For once.
That's our goal. I think.
Yes. So, Josh, what are we going to talk about today?
Yes. So when David and I were ruminating about what to cover, we had talked about maybe doing a 28 episode, maybe doing an episode about some Wi-Fi stuff. But we realized we try to be topical, right? So we think, what is the buzz right now? What are the questions we're getting? What is the engagement all about? Mm-hmm. And overwhelmingly, it's the SL system.
Yeah.
But our SL live streams, our episodes were way back in 2020.
I do not recommend watching those.
What? Don't say that. Well, we were still working out a lot of the kinks in the show. Uh-huh. So what we felt was we could not do a redo. This is not another anthology type of episode, but a chance to see where are we now.
Yeah.
In the year.
A revisit.
Yes.
Let's check in with the SL system because so much has happened in the year and a half since we did the last one?
Yeah, it's overwhelming
to
think about it in terms of hardware and firmware and just us gaining experience, all of us, Jose and the rest of the team, shooting a lot more with the cameras and understanding what they're capable of and tips and tricks and more. So
yeah, for sure.
That's pretty much our goal for tonight. So hopefully you guys have some good questions that you can ask us about. Maybe you have an SL2 or an SL system camera and you've got questions, or you're thinking about switching into one. Mm-hmm. Maybe you've got a bunch of M lenses and you don't know what to do. So these are the kind of questions we're going to be looking forward to this evening.
Indeed.
Yes, it's going to be awesome. So I think for people maybe that aren't familiar with the show, who are maybe new to the channel, David, why don't you give us a little bit of a recap as to what is the kind of current ecosystem like for the SL system?
Comprehensive, I would say.
Yes.
So it's amazing to me, but the first SL, which was the SL601,
601 right here,
right there, that camera launched in October of 2015.
Mm-hmm.
October 2015, so almost exactly 6 years ago. And it is mind-boggling how far Leica's come, because not only did we have a great camera right out of the gate with the SL601, which I used, you used, we all used for about 4 years. That was like the workhorse, and to some degree, it still is a workhorse. Definitely, there's nothing bad about the camera. We'll get around to that a little later.
Yes,
because we did see some questions related to the SL601 and its relevancy.
Mm-hmm.
When it first came out, it was joined only by one lens, which was the one here,
24-90,
which was the 24-90, 2.8 to 4, and one zoom, one camera in 2015. Well, now we've got 4 zooms going all the way from 16 at the widest, all the way to 280 millimeter at the longest, and we have 6 prime lenses now, going all the way from 28 to 90. So 28, 35, 50, 75, 90, and 50.
Yeah, there's 250s. So that's the only duplication. You got the 50 APO-Summicron-F2 and the 50 Summilux 1.4 aspheric. So there are 250s. So
and how many firmware updates would you say we've had?
I mean, major ones we had 2.0 for the SL2, 3.0, and then we just had 2.0 for the SL2-S, which is almost like reinventing what these cameras can do. We had some major feature improvements, bug fixes, tons of stuff. So it's been really only, 2 years?
Yeah, it's come a long way.
Right?
Year and a half.
Year and a half, 2 years since the systems came out. So, excuse me. I had those tacos come back to attack me.
So yeah, I mean, we've come a long way. I'd say, so just this year, just to recap that.
Yes.
So just in 2021, when we had the 28 F2, the 24 to 70.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna include the SL2-S in 2021 since it was really just announced at the end of December.
It became relevant in 2021.
Yeah.
And just to pause you there, we do actually have a really good 2021 year-to-date recap episode on the channel, which covers everything Leica did this year up to that date.
That's true.
So that is, if you're interested in like what else Leica has been up to in 2021, you should check that out.
We do.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, and I was going to say the 24-70 2.8 also came out, and we had major firmware updates. So
And we also had firmware updates for the lenses.
correct,
So
which is a little bit confusing.
yeah, so we'll show. There's really only one feature improvement from that. We'll show that the focus control as well. So somebody said you haven't. I don't see the 9280. We have it. It's just laying down.
There it is.
Because
It's too tall.
It would be very weird if I just kind of had it sitting here, like, oh, just chilling. So no, we have it. So yes, we have every single SL lens.
Or maybe they'd feel better if I put it up front here.
There we go. We have every single SL lens on the table. So if you have a question about a particular SL lens or want to see what it does, we've got all the primes, all the zooms, SL2, SL2-S, SL601 adapters.
All right, you guys feel better now?
There
got
we
it
go.
there.
Now you can see everything. Okay, good.
Let's try not to get a roll away.
Yeah. So that is the full lineup there. As well as we have adapters, we have all kinds of alternative lenses.
Yes.
A lot of stuff. So I think people are beginning to realize just how incredibly practical the SL2 is. My feeling on it has been this is the most wide appealing camera that Leica has ever produced. We're seeing more and more people coming from non-Leica stuff, getting into the SL2 or the SL2-S, especially with the bundles that came out earlier this year than ever before.
Look at that one there.
Yeah, this one right here, which is the SL2-S and the 24-70, which is actually what I've been shooting with a lot in the last couple of months, and we'll talk about that as well. So, because David and I shoot very different things, and we use very different equipment. He uses a lot more than I do.
Oh my gosh.
Simple man.
Yeah, I should have taken a picture of that. So I took almost everything you see in this front row. Just a little bit of context. If you watched our previous episode, I was the following day, the next morning after our live stream, I was heading off to Colorado to lead our Colorado Fall Foliage Workshop, which we survived. Everyone was great.
Yes.
It was an amazing trip. Great group of photographers, participants, and the weather was. There was definitely weather. We had sunshine, we had rain, there was dusting of snow in the mountains, and the color was incredible. And it was also incredible to see, I'd say the most commonly used camera among all the participants was clearly the SL system and the SL2 and the SL2-S. Myself, because people always want to know, well, what did you take? Well, what did I take? Too much. I took the SL2, SL2-S as a backup, and / if we're going to do astro, which the weather did not permit that. A Q2 monochrome just for good measure, which I ended up loaning out, so I didn't even use it. It's just good for them, not great for me, but that's okay. I had plenty of cameras to shoot with. And I took the 16-35, 24-90, 90-280, 28 prime, 28 Summicron, 35 Summicron, 50 Summicron, and 90 Summicron. All in a backpack.
It's a lot of lenses.
Yeah, it was a lot of exercise at 10,000 feet of elevation. So
Dedication right there.
dedication.
Yeah.
But I think I definitely got a better feel for the Summicron primes and how they relate to the zooms, which again is a big question. You know, we wanted to get to that because so many people, both on that trip in person, as well as people calling on the phone, sending emails, dropping us comments. It's always, okay, well, how do the zooms and the primes match up? And when should I get primes? When should I get zooms? And how do I make that work? Not everyone wants to carry, how many lenses was that for? 7 lenses?
Seven, yeah. A lot.
Yeah.
My last couple of trips has been a 24-70 and then 1 M lens or 2 M lenses, maybe. Like the bag differences between David and myself. I have my little Ona bag. It's about yay big. And David has the mother of all backpacks.
The Mindshift
which
backlight
weighs
36.
probably 50
yeah.
pounds, but
I'd say about 60 fully loaded. Yeah.
obviously, like his and my missions are photographically are very different as well. Although when I go with you on these workshops, my kit looks pretty much the same.
That's right. That's right.
So I get it.
Yeah,
I think
and Peter, who sometimes joins us and sometimes doesn't, but Peter co-led that workshop, and he had an SL2, 16-35, 24-90, 90-280, as well as he also had an MA film camera and some other stuff.
yeah,
But
I saw some of the stuff Peter did with the Q2 monochrome.
yeah, he had the
Pretty
Q2
sweet.
monochrome.
Pretty sweet stuff.
One of our participants, Chip, was big on infrared and actually had some infrared filters that he loaned Peter. So not infrared blocking, but visible light blocking, infrared letting in. And in the middle of the day, it was like blocking so much visible light because the camera's not, I know this is not a Q episode, but the Q2 monochrome is, in case you need to know, is not very sensitive to infrared because he was shooting at f1.7, 25,000 ISO at a 50th of a second in broad daylight.
That's ridiculous. But yeah, that's part of the fun.
But it also means that sensor is really very, very low sensitivity to infrared.
Which is good. If you're
Which is
shooting
great.
visible light,
Which is
that's
great.
kind of the idea. You would just get an M8 for that, I think, if you wanted to be real creative.
That's right. But it was fun. It was fun.
So we got some questions ahead of time. I see a lot of questions in the chat. I think we feel like we should dive in. What time is it? We got a good, we're on 12 minutes. Before we do that though, something that Kirsten worked very, very hard on and would be mad if I didn't mention it. If you haven't seen it already, she has created the Which Leica Are You quiz.
Oh yeah.
Which is super cool.
Super fun.
And you answer a couple of questions and you find out which Leica you are.
What were you?
I was an M10 monochrome.
I was an M10R.
Interesting. That makes sense.
Okay.
So it's on our website, on the homepage.
It's somewhere. It's somewhere. Maybe
Kirsten, you can drop it in the chat if you want.
Yeah.
And tell us if you take it during the show. Maybe when David, or
post
one
the
of
comments,
us, one of us goes on an extra long ramble, which we're either likely to do. Take the quiz. Let us know in the comments what you got when you took it. So
Yeah.
that would be cool. So good job, Kirsten, on that. I'll mention it again at the end of the show.
Yeah.
So I think we can get into some questions.
Yeah. Before we get started, just general housekeeping.
Okay.
As always, look, if you like the videos that we do, be sure to give us a thumbs up. It helps us out. It makes us feel loved, pretty much.
Subscribe. We're so close to 17,000 subscribers.
We are. Yeah, we're within
we got to get to 20,000. Push to 20K.
Push to 20K.
By my birthday, which is at the end of February. That's the goal. 5 months. 5 months.
We can do it.
And what are we going to do first? We'll get really, really drunk on air.
No, we won't.
With some German
I think
beer.
we should do some kind of swag giveaway or something like that.
That's not as exciting, but okay.
Yeah, maybe they like
We'll
they
do
like the swag giveaway
We'll do both.
Get really drunk and a swag
And
giveaway.
swag giveaway. We'll start giving away cameras at that
Cool.
point. Hey,
Yeah.
everybody gets a camera.
So be sure to subscribe to Red Up Forum. Make sure you click the little notification bell so you know when we post new content, go live, stuff like that. We're gonna keep cranking these things out for you. And do we want to give them a little tease about what we're doing next time?
Yeah. So we got really excited about this SL sort of recap, and we are going to see M next week. Right.
Yep.
Next 1 week from
Wow.
today.
Yeah.
We're going to do a recap on the M system because there's a lot of things that have happened with the M as well, firmware, lenses, cameras. So we're going to cover that next week. So definitely, like David said, subscribe.
And tune in.
Hit the notification, and you'll know when we post the episode so you can see what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, always you can head to red.forum.com when we're not doing videos. Check out any of the hundreds and hundreds of articles that we have there, both in terms of Leica news. If you want, you can check out all the announced everything. We have in-depth stories on every single piece of SL gear. There's reviews on the original SL, on the 9280, on the 75 APO, on the 35 APO,
Tons of stuff.
etc.
Tons of stuff.
Interviews with the product managers on multiple occasions for the SL system and the designers of the SL lenses. And you
We
can
got a
check it all
couple
out
of
there.
Bill was an SL2, Tammy was an M3. Nice. We're getting some good feedback from people on the quiz.
Okay.
SL2 raffle.
I think if we're doing an SL2 raffle, it's got to be bigger than 20K.
Yeah, maybe 200,000 we'll do an SL2
Maybe
raffle.
200,000. Listen,
This channel doesn't quite pay for much more than our lunch yet.
this channel pays for tacos.
Yeah, that's
pretty much
I was
it.
choking on earlier. All right, so I think we can get into some questions. And I know there's one I really would like to answer, which is, can you pull up the list just so
Sure.
I can direct Jose?
Okay.
I think kind of a variation of the first one.
Or this one, maybe. I think we should attack.
Oh,
the
that's a
biggest
good one.
first.
Yeah. So line 4, Jose, on the spreadsheet. Yeah, the fourth one down, or the third question, but the fourth line.
Okay,
There you go.
This is a big one.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
that's a good one. Yeah. So basically, differences between SL2 and SL2-S.
Sure. I think this question really is either for someone that owns or doesn't own. How do I choose?
Yeah.
And SL2
And before you get started on
Yes.
that,
Yes.
I already said I'm an SL2. You're SL2S.
Yes. So you know that already.
Jose, what about you?
In the quiz or?
No, in real
Where
life.
you shoot.
Oh, in real life, SL2-S. My first Leica.
That's right. So Jose,
Jose is the proud owner
yes,
of an SL2S
he just got
himself.
one. So he's been shooting one for a while, and then now he just picked one up because obviously we have to store demo stuff. But now he has his own, so he can stop stealing ours, which is great.
Exactly.
So the question is, right?
Still in the lenses, but
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
fair enough. How do you choose between, or how do you decide between the SL2 or the SL2-S? And more importantly, or maybe not more importantly, but more relevantly, how did we decide SL2? Because he chose the SL2, and we both choose everything, but we have our favorites.
And if you watched the show before, you know that I will call this out. What you're watching right now, all of this, our studio cameras are SL2Ss. So what you're seeing is, when you see us like this, is SL2S with 24 to 90 at about, 65, 70 millimeter-ish. And then if you go to the close-up, that one is an SL2S with a 90 to 280. So we are using those cameras for video. And that's an important...
1600 ISO, by the way.
At what?
1600 ISO.
At 1600 ISO in 4K, and it's totally noiseless. So I think first, let's say kind of that decision tree. Okay, do you shoot video or do you shoot stills primarily?
Well, this is going to be, I think, a still focus.
There's multiple variables,
so
right?
We're going to assume stills, I think, for this because we owe the viewers a video episode, and we've been saying it for a while.
And
we will do it.
Yep.
We will do it. We will do it. Probably after the holidays.
We're going to figure out how to do it.
It'll probably be January, but we will do it. So
Josh will do it by himself.
I will do it by myself. So we're going to say, I'm going to say that question. I'll rephrase the question. As a still shooter, how do I decide between the SL2 and the SL2S?
Okay. Well, okay. Let's say, because functionally, these are both the same body, the same processor, the same interface.
Oh, thanks. Edgar says, did you super chat? Just to give us a taco, so.
Yeah, we'll go back to that.
No, just no question.
What's that?
Just says that. He just says, you taco and me. Thanks.
Oh, Edgar says, gave us $5 to
all right. Thanks for
support the channel and buy us a taco.
Anyway,
Thanks a lot.
Carry on.
Okay, so because pretty much everything is the same between an SL2 and an SL2S, except for the sensor.
Yes.
So here is, let's make it for stills, decision tree. Do you need resolution? Or do you need, some people, I can talk. Some people actually want less resolution, which let's hold that for just a second and come back to it. So do you want resolution or do you want, let's say, faster image processing in your computer or less storage space because you have a need where you don't require the resolution, but you require the feature set that the SL2S offers. So that's one thing. And then I'd say, do you need, what is your shooting condition? Are you going to be on a tripod when it gets dark, or are you going to want to shoot handheld? And I think both of those factors, high resolution and tripod mounted, when the light gets low enough, would be SL2 for me. And then low light or wanting less resolution would be SL2S. Now, what's your thoughts on that?
For me, the SL2S has a couple of things I really like. I love the file size. I have been saying this since the show started. I am a 24 megapixel fan. I find those files are very easy to work with. They're very easy to edit. You don't have to have a super fast computer, which I didn't at the time, although I do now, thanks to David's help. But
it's nice, isn't it?
He's super nice, yes. But for me, because my output is generally social media, emails, or small prints, I don't need the higher resolution. What I do need is the higher ISO capability. For me, that's huge. I also use a lot of unusual M lenses, as you guys know if you watch the show. And I have found that they generally perform better on the SL2S for two primary reasons. Number one, the SL2S's finder is better in low light. I talked about this on the SL2S show, and I'll talk about it again.
But the SL2 viewfinder has now had that low light optimization.
Well, they both have it now. They both have enhanced live view, but I still feel the SL2S just has a little bit of an edge in the finder clarity for manual focusing, specifically for manual focusing in low light. With SL lenses, it doesn't matter.
And I would say that has to be true, given the SL2S, how clean it is at high ISO.
Yes.
And we did a whole episode on the SL2S. When it launched, we did an entire dedicated episode on SL2S. And do you remember my ISO test that I ran through with the color chart?
Yeah.
You couldn't tell a difference between, in video at least, at 4K, you couldn't tell the difference between ISO 400 and ISO 25,000.
Yeah,
it was ridiculously
good.
Yeah.
So personally, for what I do, I value basically not having to think about the lighting situation and wonder if I can go high enough in the ISO, because I just can.
Sure.
Combined with a viewfinder that's better in low light, which also The low resolution is less demanding on the vintage lenses, so I'm not worried as much about pushing them past their limits.
Sure.
And I do a lot of Wi-Fi from the camera to my phone.
File size makes
A lot.
difference.
And I do that often with DNGs because I just happen to like editing them in Photoshop, whatever it's called. Photoshop
Lightroom Mobile.
Well, I actually use Photoshop Express. I just wanted to look. Just because I'm one at a time type of thing. And I'll literally bring the DNG over from the SL2S to my iPhone. I have an 11 Pro, works fine. And it's awesome because I have all the functionality. I can make this awesome looking photo in 30 seconds on my phone.
From the go.
And share it with my friends or post it online. So for me, the smaller file size combined with the better M-Lens experience has made the SL2S better for me. Now, there's an exception to that is when I'm going to use TL lenses.
Sure. Which I know you like to do.
Something else I like to do, especially with the 60 macro.
Now, why don't we explain that just for a second, right?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna.
Okay.
Yeah. Because when you mount one of Leica's APS-C lenses that are designed for the TL2 or the CL, when you mount one of those onto an SL2 or an SL2S, because it's an L-mount lens, so it mounts, no adapter needed, it just sticks right on there. It does activate the camera's APS-C mode automatically, cropping the sensor down by a factor of 1.5. On the SL2S, that's only 10 megapixels, which is not a lot unless you're really just doing something for web. On the SL2, it's 20 megapixels, which is almost the same full res you get on an SL2S. So for me, if I'm going to be using TL lenses, let's say I'm traveling and I want the functionality of the SL2, but the compactness of the CL lenses.
Throw that 18 over here.
Oh yeah, here we go. I will bring the SL2 because then I can use the TL lenses, get my 20 megapixels, and I'm a happy camper. It's only when I'm focusing on full frame SL lenses or M lenses that I'm gravitating more towards the SL2S.
Yeah, I mean, let's just check this out for a second,
Yeah,
right?
this is fantastic.
It looks a little bigger because I still have my my really red stuff L bracket on here. So, but otherwise, you can see the size of that. I know Jose's got a close up, and that is going to be a 20 megapixel, 28 millimeter equivalent. That's super small and light. Again, if I take the bracket off, which I probably should have done before the show started. But anyway, and I was looking for the wrench. It's not on here. It's on the other camera.
You're doing great.
But yeah, look how compact that is. Or you can use the excellent, one of our favorites, 35-1.4. I love that lens.
Yeah, that's sweet. Get a close up of that. Yeah, that's nice. And they're very light. They're very. I think probably one of the most underrated lenses on the SL2 is the 55-135. I know one of our customers used this in Colorado in lieu of the 90-280 just to save weight.
Sure.
And because the SL2 sensor is stabilized, you don't have to worry about needing the in-lens stabilization of the 90-280, and you're getting not exactly the same, but a very similar reach from a lens that is a quarter of the size and weight.
Yeah, this is equivalent to an 80-200.
Yeah.
And it's still a Leica APO lens. I mean, this is still really high quality, but super, super small and light. So maybe you have a kit with a 16-35 or 24-90 and this for a long lens
Yeah.
in crop mode.
So this is a scenario where I would switch from my normal SL2S to the SL2, which I do frequently. If you look at my desk at my office, I've got an SL2 with a 60 macro on there that I do for a lot of the sort
Or the
of
11-23.
product photography that I do in the store, random stuff like that.
Yeah. This is another one, and that same gentleman who had the 55-135 also had
Kirsten, will you put the link for the quiz in there? Yes.
also had this, which is the 11-23, which is
Nice.
equivalent to a 16-35.
And what's cool about this, to interrupt you, is it's an E67 filter size.
It is.
So you could have this and a couple of the APO SL primes and only need one set of filters,
Yep.
which is awesome.
Yep.
So I guess to summarize,
True. I like that point.
SL2 is about maximum resolution. SL2S is about maximum low light performance. Those are the primary differences. But there's a but. What is a key feature that's now that was introduced in firmware on both cameras that you get, which somewhat can negate the resolution argument?
Multi-shot. So both the SL2 and the SL2S feature multi-shot capability. That means you got to lock it down on a tripod, otherwise it gets very angry with you and tells you motion detected, stop. But once you lock it down and initiate a multi-shot, it's in the drive menu. So just like you have single, continuous, self-timer, you'll see multi-shot. And it's really easy. It has an integrated 2-second self-timer that you just turn on, tap it, and it's so fast. It's taking 8 shots, so it's shifting by half a pixel in every direction, which does two things. Why 8 instead of 4? Since it is 4 times the resolution. It's doing 8 because it's actually negating the color filter. So you're getting no color interpolation. Every single pixel in the image is being captured at full color, not third color, if you will. So no color interpolation. So it's going to be a cleaner, purer, more informative image plus 4 times the resolution, which means you're getting 187 megapixel from the SL2 or 96 megapixel from the SL2-S. And for me, and the thing that I've kind of gone over with some people is, let's say they like the convenience of the SL2-S, they like the low lightability, and they're like, but I don't want to give up all the resolution if I'm going to go shoot landscape. I'll say, you don't have to, because if you are going to be shooting landscape on a tripod, you can easily, one click, get 96 megapixel images. And unlike other camera systems, what's really cool about the SL system is the multishot is combined in camera into a single ultra-large DNG file, along with a second DNG file that's the native resolution in case there's any kind of motion artifacts. So you always have that backup. It gives you 2 shots, the ultra high res and a normal resolution that you can always use. So I love the functionality.
Yes.
I used it a bunch.
A couple of caveats.
Really nice.
You have to use a full frame lens. So you can't use a TL lens on either of these cameras to get multi-shot. It has to be an SL lens or an M lens or an R lens, something full frame. It does need to be a relatively static subject. Flowing water and trees are okay, but like people running, or if it's a heavy windy day or planes in the sky, that may throw it off a little bit. So it's not a perfect solution for everything, but it is a really, really ideal solution to negate the low resolution of the SL2S's sensor, for sure.
Or to really just clobber everything else in terms of resolution on the SL2.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, close to 200 megapixel images is...
It's pretty insane.
It's so ridiculous.
Do you want to show one?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, David actually has at least one multi-shot that I really
This
like.
is from the SL2.
Yeah, well, I'll let you pull it up while I talk a little bit, more. Because, again, I think it's because it came in firmware. So when I'll talk about firmware quickly, for a while, the SL2S had the firmware edge because 2.0 introduced a whole bunch of new features, but SL2 firmware 3.0 just came out, which now reconciles that. So there's no more feature differences between the two. Now they are equalized in terms of like all those fancy new video settings that David likes and more, which we'll get into. But that's worth mentioning.
All right, so we're going to go to Colorado.
We're getting there. David is opening up his Colorado.
Well, I have multi-shot on here too, but I'll...
No, I want to show him that one that I saw, because we looked this up ahead of time, and it's pretty amazing. Of course, you need to have a relatively fast computer to process 187 megapixel file, so that is another caveat.
I will say, my laptop actually did remarkably well.
But you have a super fast brand new laptop.
Yes.
Don't start.
So I'm saying my laptop is just fine.
Yes, your beast of a laptop is just fine.
Even, I would say, if we had this discussion, again, a lot's changed in a year and a half. And I can easily say, okay, you want a computer that's fast enough, but you don't want to carry a big computer? Great. Get an M1, 13-inch MacBook Pro. It'll breeze through SL2 files. There, you're done.
Let's pull up the computer screen, Jose.
Ready?
I'm always ready.
All right, let's do it.
Am I ready for this, though? I don't know. Let's see. I did actually do a little tag thing, so let me search for...
You got these from Google, right? These photos?
Yeah.
This is Shutterstock.
Okay, so I tagged them with multi-shot. So let's take a look at this one here.
All right, don't forget to be developed. Thank you.
Always being developed.
That's right.
So let's close this because we don't need it. All right. So this is, as you can see up here, 16,736 by 11,168 pixels. That's a bit larger than your typical SL2 file, but this is taken, let me cycle through here. You can see I've used the 35 APO-Summicron-SL at f8 ISO 100, 1/40th of a second. And this is at Maroon Bells. This was our very first shoot of the workshop, the first morning, and we really lucked out with the weather there. So let me zoom in on that just so you can see just a little bit of the detail. So it's pretty good. I should actually bring this back so you can see the navigator, just so to give you some idea for those that can actually see it. This is an incredibly small portion of the image.
I mean, you could make a 60 by 20 print from 100% zoom.
It's insane. It is absolutely insane. And it also, to me, just demonstrates how amazing the APO-Summicrons are, that they're able to resolve this level of fine detail everywhere in the frame. Every little branch and leaf and rock texture is just in there. And you still get the look overall of a regular SL2 shot. And the processing is the same too.
I gotta say, if you own an SL2 or an SL2-S and you've not tried multi-shot,
oh, you should.
Owe it to yourself to test it out.
Yeah.
Because even if you're not shooting this amazing landscape, it's a lot of fun to be able to generate a file with such ridiculous detail. So please just set it up in your backyard or whatever and just experiment with it. Especially so if you know you're gonna go on a trip at some point, you wanna understand how that method works. You wanna understand what the files look like, how your computer handles the files, all that stuff.
Yeah, so I'll show you, this is just one other multi-shot. So the first one was a 35. This one's at 16 millimeters, you can see here. Oh,
David, can you go full screen on that?
I don't know why he doesn't.
Because
Take him out of there.
Because it's not quite, if I do full screen, it's not quite full screen. But only because of the way we're cropping on the computer, but let me see what I can do.
I'm trying to get David to do
that?
a Red Dot Forum story about this stuff.
Okay.
Now I'm saying it on air, so you have to do it.
Okay, so here is a full screen-ish, although it's cropping on the side there, which forgive. But that would be, that's a multi-shot from Colorado. This is a place called Crystal Mill. And the reason I'm showing this one in particular is because it has moving water. And I told you it's taking 8 pictures, but it's not as simple. There's definitely more going on under the hood to negate any kind of motion artifacts. And a lot of people ask me if it will work with moving water. So let me go back quickly to develop. I'm just going to zoom in here to the water. Well, first I got to show off the detail because, detail.
It's ridiculous.
The detail is ridiculous. So, the amount of resolution it's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. But let's go back to the water for a second. And something you'll notice is what I noticed, which is this is taken at 0.3 seconds. It looks exactly what I would expect with 1/3 of a second exposure. This is the exact amount of moving water, and it looks normal. It looks fine. If I go down into the rapids here, wait for it to render, it looks normal. It looks like I expect a 1/3 of a second exposure for moving water to look like. When I look at the leaves in the trees, they're not moving, they're tack sharp. So there's definitely some magic going on in terms of how these are processing.
All right, you can come back to us.
Yeah.
So I guess, again, try this out.
Very
It is
easy.
ridiculous. As long as your firmware is up to date on either your SL2S or your SL2, you'll have access to this feature. It is in drive mode.
Yes.
Just make sure you're on a solid tripod, because if you're moving around, if the camera detects movement, it will not let you do the multi-shot.
Even if it's windy and you kind of have an anemic tripod, it'll also warn you.
Yeah, so you got to be super, super steady. But anyway, I think
What is the limit for the shutter speed?
1
what's that?
second. It's
Which
1
one?
second. Because
yes.
multi-shot uses the electronic shutter, which is a maximum time
second.
of 1 second. You cannot go for exposures longer than 1 second.
That is the only limitation really that
Well, the 3 limitations are longer speed, full frame lens,
Yes,
no movement. Those are the big 3.
Yeah, pro tip as well. It's kind of a pain when you're trying to move the camera around and the lens to compose and focus, and it's constantly throwing up that error message on the screen, and it kind of locks you out for a second or two. So my suggestion is go to a regular drive mode, just single or whatever. Once you're locked everything down, then switch it to multi-shot, which I should bring up as a pro tip. I'm going to give you a little pro tip.
Okay. Let's do it.
Okay, because this is, well, let's balance this with some practical. Yes, I know it's full. Okay, practical knowledge here. Okay, so if I'm on my screen here, a lot of people ask me what I program my custom functions as. And what's really neat on the SL2 generation is we have quite a few of customizable controls. Make sure I'm in mind focus.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the function button right here is one of those. Then we have the button right here next to the EVF. We've got the two buttons right here on the top deck. And if I flip her around, there is, let's catch the light. We've got 1 and 2.
Move forward a little bit.
There we go.
There you go. We got it.
Okay, we've got 1 and 2 split buttons here that are also customizable. So the way I like to set these buttons up, because people do ask about that, I use the function button on the back to toggle between the different live view screens. So I like to show different kind of information. I always like to have a clean one for composition, and then I generally like to have everything. I also like grid and virtual horizon, and also in here is going to be a blown highlight warning as well. But this one is always going to be ISO. So if I push that once, you'll see it says ISO on the back here. And then this is going to be set to drive mode. So I can easily go between single, or when I'm working on a tripod, I usually want to take this to, whoop, there we go, 2-second self-timer, or we can easily go down to either exposure bracketing or to multi-shot. So this is that multi-shot screen I was talking about. And the thing that I'm trying to avoid is this. You'll notice it says vibration detected. Please use a stable base for multi-shot. And no matter how still I hold it, it's never going to be still enough for it. So it's standing in the way. So my pro tip is don't use that until you're absolutely ready to shoot your multi-shot sequence and you're locked in, because now I can compose and do everything I need to do on screen, and then easily, because I've got it programmed in, select it. And the way to select that is you just long press any of these controls and you can assign it. You can go through the whole list here. And on this case, I like to go to drive mode, which is, there's a lot of choices. There we go.
Yeah,
Drive
first
mode.
page. There
Yep,
you go.
drive mode. Okay, and half press the shutter to get out of that. On the bottom, I'm using image stabilization on or off because, again, when I'm on a tripod, I typically turn image
You're pressing
stabilization.
the front button, right?
Yeah, sorry. I'm pressing the lower front button to bring up image stabilization on or off. And the upper button here is a magnification. So I can zoom around the image for added focus or compositional aid.
There you go.
All right, so that's
David's custom function button setup. Mine's a little different, but we'll talk about it next time.
But I like having ready access to ISO, image stabilization, drive mode for landscape shooting.
Yes,
right?
so this would basically be, if we were making user profiles, David's landscape user profile with those settings dialed in.
Yep. And I don't need to set exposure bracketing like I had in the past, because exposure bracketing is under drive mode. So it's kind of 3 birds with 1 stone. I can get into self-timer, exposure bracketing, or multi-shot, all with that one quick key.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Nice. So
that was practical knowledge.
Yeah, so that was a good long form answer, which I'm excited that we did. We probably have 8 trillion questions to answer, but don't care about that right now, because there's another really good question that I want to answer next that's really getting into the meat of the questions we get a lot. Pull up the list of Ruski.
I see we got a lot of questions coming in as well.
I know, but I want to answer a couple of these core ones first, and we're going to get to these next. These are probably going to be much shorter.
That's an interesting one. If you want to, we should touch on that.
Hi, undecided between SL2 or S007 for landscape. Any advice? Well, that's going to come down to lens choice, because what you get with the SL2 is the family of amazing zooms: 16-35, 24-90, 90-80. 007 has one zoom, which is quite large and heavy, with a very large filter thread, which doesn't really make it practical for filtration. And the longest you can get is 180, which is a 144 equivalent. So if you're like David or myself and shoot landscape a lot with the 90-280, not as practical. But
there's a but.
When it comes to ultimate image quality, dynamic range, color reproduction, S is still the king.
It's an insane camera, and the lenses are absolutely lovely.
Yeah. So if you're a shooter of primes between 24 and 144, and you're not going to use the camera for anything else, because that's really
19 and 144.
Right, 19 and 144. The S007 is also a much more niche, much more specific camera. So where the SL2 can do almost everything, the S camera cannot. Watch our S episode to understand that better. But basically, if you say, Josh, I just want to have an incredible landscape camera, I want my images to look like nobody else's, and I want special lenses, and I'm willing to slow down and have a different camera for everything else, 007s are getting cheap.
Yeah.
They're basically the same price as a used SL2 or less.
Insane, yeah.
And there's plenty of lenses out there. They've been out for over a decade at this point. So it just depends on your gear objectives and functionality needs. Yeah.
It's definitely keeping it simple.
It's a great question, though. I know, we kind of just grabbed that
It
one.
is,
but
yeah,
thought it
I saw that. I was
pretty
like,
good.
well, as someone who shot the S for the better part of 10 years as my main landscape camera, and now I'm shooting the SL2.
I'm gonna ask you this question, David.
Okay.
Mark, I'll edit it here. Are we going to see multi-shot on the Q2? And the answer is
No.
why?
Very simple. So the SL2 and the SL2-S have something fundamental hardware-wise that the Q2 does not, that the M10 does not, which is a 5-axis image stabilized sensor. The actual sensor moves inside. It wiggles. When the camera's off, you'll see it jiggling around. That's normal. It allows the camera inside to shift it by, it's actually shifting 2.5 microns, if you can imagine, in every direction. The Q2 does have image stabilization, but it's optical image stabilization in the lens. The sensor is bolted in, it does not move. So the answer is no, it does not.
Meaning we'll never see multi-shot on any of the current products in Leica's portfolio, aside from the ones that have it, because you need a sensor that can be moved precisely to have it.
Yes.
Good question, though.
That is
Yes,
great
I'd love to see it, but it's just not practical, or not possible, sorry. Okay, let me skim this real quick and see if I have another question for you.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, I don't know the answer to this, but what Leica took away depth of field preview on the SL2 and the SL2-S, and they had it on the 601.
I don't know why.
We don't know why. This is one of the great mysteries of Leica, and one of the many.
And Leica, if you're listening, I've made this suggestion before, and I'm going to make it again. Something that came to top of mind, because listen, it's not all roses and unicorns and rainbows, okay? I like to use exposure bracketing sometimes when I need to. And something that kills me just a little bit is the fact that there is no option like there is in multishot. When you go to multishot, it says, do you want to do a 2-second self-timer? Yes or no. I want the exact same option for exposure bracketing, because if you go to exposure bracketing, because it's a drive mode, you have to be very careful and press the shutter without moving the camera.
Well, the other options you have as well is the wired
That's
cable
true.
release, or using the Leica Photos app to trigger the camera wirelessly, which I've done. So
But I want my 2-second
I know you do, but you can't have it.
and it's something that I had in the S. So.
Yes, I don't know. They're cruel. A couple of quick questions here. Maybe the 777.
Yes, that is correct. Kind of.
So Jeffrey asks, "Hey guys, with the IBIS sensor in the SL2, do you need to be careful cleaning the sensor?" Well, you just want to turn the camera on.
Yeah, because you need to be creative.
Yeah.
And this is another feedback that we've given to Leica that I'm hoping they adopt in the future, make people a lot less nervous, because right now, I'm going to demonstrate on my camera. Here we go. Okay. If I go in there, okay, this is, in case those who don't know, in this little case, this is
angled.
There we go.
There you go.
If you don't know what this is an iLead sensor cleaning stick.
We call this the blue one.
This is the blue one, and there's also a red one.
I think it's orange.
Is it?
Is it orange, Jose, or red?
That's red.
It's
Reddish orange. Okay.
reddish orange.
So this is a sensor cleaning stick. It comes with little papers, which I'm going to get one out very carefully here. Okay. It comes with these little papers that you basically peel back and dab. These are sticky when you peel them back. And you can always get recharge packs of these. But I'm just going to show you what happens with the camera off. And I'm going to try to get the sensor there. And you'll notice when I press on it, maybe you can't see, but the sensor actually is wiggling side to side. I know I'm giving some people a heart attack right now. But yeah, the sensor is actually moving around and jiggling. You can't actually tell because it's pretty clean right now. I just cleaned it. So yeah, if I turn the camera on, which I just did, you can see I just powered it on. Now when I dab the sensor, it doesn't move. So it's locked the sensor in position now. So what I would like to see happen is for there to be a sensor cleaning mode that basically powers the sensor down, but activates the image stabilization and locks it into place. We would love to see that happen. Maybe in an upcoming firmware, Leica can pull that off. But for right now, I know it seems counterintuitive, and everyone who's ever told you anything about cleaning a sensor ever on a digital camera, they would say turn it off, take the battery out, whatever. Leave the battery in and turn it on.
Yeah. Somebody says you did a head bobble when I talked about the S versus the SL2. Did that mean you disagree with what I said?
What? No.
I was going to say, we usually are on the same page.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Your body language belies your...
I think
apparently.
Anyway,
okay.
The other thing is make sure to blow your sensor off first. Love little eyelid blowers because they do have a dust filter. So when you intake air, it's clean air, and then when you blow it on the sensor, you're not just blowing more dust on the sensor. So these are really well made. Fair warning though, they smell horrible.
I can smell it from here.
They smell horrible.
Gosh.
My whole camera bag smells like this because
rubber.
it's a natural, non-synthetic rubber, which I guess is good, but it smells so bad.
Yeah. Just pause for a moment. Jose, you've been monitoring these things. Before you ask us a question, I want to know from your perspective, the kind of work you do, what drove you to the SL2-S and what your experience has been like with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, you kind of summarized it earlier when you mentioned the differences between the SL2S and the SL2. And even though we shoot completely different things, the same theory applies, which is lower megapixels on the SL2S, better high ISO performance. Like you said, better for video as well, which is something that I also do. So definitely that was the big decision there is, okay, do I go for lower megapixels and better high ISO performance, or do I go for high resolution, which can be great for stills, obviously. So the type of work that I do is either behind the scenes of music videos, movies, studio settings, events. I've done some weddings, so I'm kind of going in and out of good light, bad light, dim light. I shoot at night. I shoot in different scenes. So definitely the high ISO performance was a big factor in making that decision. And like you said, also if I ever do need to shoot landscapes, which I also do when I travel or when I go somewhere, I have that multi-shot mode on the SL2S, which gives me that high resolution. And then, of course, when I get into the video side of things, the SL2S is the better choice as well. So I mean, it's not just the difference in the megapixels. It's like you said, also when you're going to work on these files on your computer and you have to import, 1,000 photos from a wedding or something, it's much easier to work with 24 megapixels than 47. And also because 24 is great. Like, I'm not printing a billboard with these files. Yeah. Even if I wanted to print large photos, it's perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. And I'm also, when I shoot, I'm also trying to always, use the whole frame. Like, so try not to shoot and then having to crop later. If I have to, it's fine. But I'm always trying to, fill the frame how I want the shot to be. So if I have to crop, it doesn't have to be that much and lose, resolution. So yeah.
There you go. For the man himself, who
there
just spent his money on an SL2S. So that tells you something right there.
And of course, using M lenses, it's great for video. And
I've seen you grab a couple of interesting M lenses recently. Having some fun with that.
Definitely. So
we'll get into that a little more later, probably. But
yeah.
All right. So let's go with another question, Jose. What do you have for us?
Sure.
Take your pick.
So, let's go. This is a good question here. When does it make sense to purchase an APO SL Prime rather than a 2490 or maybe even 2470 now that we have both zooms?
Ooh,
that's a tough one.
That's a tough one. That's a loaded question, but let me take a crack at it if you don't mind.
Be my guest.
The reality comes down to the way you shoot. So if you tell me you're out doing landscapes all day long, you're at f8, f11 on a tripod, 24-90.
And I'd add to that, because I just encountered this, in bad weather, either dusty or rainy or both.
Environments where you don't want to be changing lenses and thus compromising the camera's weather sealing. Because the prime lenses are weather sealed, so that's not the issue. It's
changing.
So the 24-90 is a fantastic lens. It's pretty large relative to the primes. It's pretty heavy relative to the primes. But if you're doing landscape stuff, you're kind of inherently using strategies to negate that weight with tripods and backpacks and big straps, so it's not as
weight
big
training, really.
Exactly.
Weight training.
So The prime lenses do three things really, really well. Number one is they have a faster aperture. 24 to 90, fastest aperture is 2.8 at the wide end, whereas the primes are all f2.
Well, and especially once you get to the long end, like 90, you got f2 versus f4.
Huge difference, 2 stops.
And I can show an example.
Number
of that.
2 is they are better. They are sharper, dramatically so, especially wide open. Stop down, not as much. The APO SL prime lenses are sharper at the corners at f2 wide open than the 24 to 90 is, or in fact, any other lens that Leica makes is at 5.6. It's that dramatic. The third thing they do really well is they focus extremely close. Really, 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 really close.
How about like this one?
Oh, Jose's not breaking stuff over there.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Dropping
Go to the old compy, will you please? There we go. What lens is this, David?
That is the, oh, I gotta get out of full screen to show you. That's the 90 APO-Summicron-SL.
So here's an example of if you said, when we're talking, right? You asked me this question.
I'll go back to full
So
screen.
I love to do shots like this. I love to get bokeh. I love to get close. I love to have that phenomenal sharpness with fast focus fall off. I would say get a prime. Do not get the 24 to 90 because you won't be able to get a shot like that. You can get sort of kind of close, but it's not going to look like that. So the factors aren't just image quality or size and weight. It's a mixture of those things because you need to ask yourself, what are you looking for when you're getting out and shooting? When I go to a car show for an entire day, I'm not even bringing a bag with me. I'm just bringing an SL2-S with a 24 to 90 and a polarizer and an extra battery in my pocket because I'm mobile, I'm moving around, the scenes are changing quickly, and I'm not in a position where I can be swapping lenses all the time. Versus if I'm out walking around New York City, I'll just pop on a 35 APO SL onto an SL2-S and I'm good to go.
You want to give them another example here? So yeah.
So this is, okay, I've talked about this before. The APO SL primes allow you to do a kind of photography we have not been able to do before. What that is medium to long distance, wide open photography with no compromise in performance. Because usually what happens with a fast prime lens or any fast lens, yes, it's super cool to shoot it at near or close to minimum distance. You get that super fast fall off, just like the shot David showed you. It's beautiful. But what if you start getting farther and farther and farther out? Traditionally, wide open, the performance falls off. It gets a little mushy in the center and forget about the corners. But because the APO SL primes are so good and they're such a benchmark setting for lenses across the board, you can shoot scenes like this, which is a middle distance scene, wide open, to get the effect of a fast aperture lens without the performance compromises.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is all the way at the very edge of the frame.
That is
the far edge.
I don't even know what to say to that. It's crazy to have this kind of performance at middle distance, wide open. This is an SL2 at 47 megapixels. Is mind-boggling. You could not. There was no lens in the world that I know of that could do this. That's weather sealed, autofocus, relatively manageable to carry around all day long.
And I'm going to argue this, which is a lot of people are like, oh, but it's so, what's the word I'm looking for? Clinical. And I look at this and I say, but that's not at all clinical. This other one that I just showed you, these shots, whatever. I'm trying to find the other one. That's not clinical at all.
No. Clinical, maybe at f8, maybe you're starting to get towards that. But that's the whole point of the APO primes, is they allow you to work in a way we couldn't work before without that performance compromise. So,
and you look at that, that's
nuts. If that's the kind of photography that you like to do or that you want to do, get an APO prime. If your objective is, I find at f8 getting the superb image quality of the 24 to 90, and I need that flexibility, then you get a 24 to 90. If you've never tried a 24 to 90 before and you're concerned about size and weight relative to, say, M lenses or other primes, you should try it first because it is large and heavy compared to the primes. Now, I've been using this lens, and so has David, for a very long time. We're used to it. It doesn't bother me. I mean, 6 years using this lens, I don't think about it.
Now, this being said,
yes,
okay, because I showed you a similar picture. This is now with the 24 to 90 at 90, wide open at f4. And it's still pretty nice. This isn't like, again, where it's super harsh or everything's in focus. There's still a nice separation between the subject and the background. It's not as smooth and creamy as the 90 APO is at f2, clearly because it's 2 stops different.
Yeah.
But you can get very close. You can do a similar look. So it's not...
I don't know. I think that with shot with a 90, it would have been a lot.
It would have been a lot nicer.
I'm just saying, no offense, but
But if I take something like this that's shot at 7.1 at 24,
right.
having the flexibility to be able to shoot a wide shot like this, and then shoot a
You filter by lens, right? Oh, you did already.
by focal length. So let's say by lens, and now, okay, that's 90 now. So I have the ability to shoot at 24 and everywhere in between to 90 and have excellent results.
And here's the thing as well. You get a level of compositional preciseness and control with a zoom you don't get with a prime.
Like this.
So if you're in a situation like this,
Here, like
or like
67.
yeah, you can dial in your focal length to the millimeter and get it flawless without having to worry about cropping later. So that's a huge advantage of a zoom, because you can't always move closer if you're at the edge of a cliff, or if you're right up against a tree or whatever.
It's true.
You can't move closer. You need to have that zoom so you can tweak it. So that is a huge advantage of
Yeah,
it.
and you can just see in my Lightroom catalog, I've got the 24 to 90 selected here, but if you look at the range of focal lengths, you'll notice that I'm actually have a pretty even distribution across all these, with a notable exception at 90.
These are just David's selects, by the way. This is
These are
not
just
his
some
full.
selects,
This is
yeah.
not his full take.
Right, but like 31 millimeters, I have a few there, or 40, because compositionally, let's say there's another shot of the mill, I wanted to get exactly this. All of these shots have no cropping. I like to really get it right in camera, and the zoom helps. You don't like that, and the zoom helps me to do that. So this is somewhere in the middle.
So it's important to, before you come to me and ask me, should you get an APO prime or 24 to 90, which is a valid question, which we just spent 10 minutes talking about, you need to, at the very least, sit down with yourself after you've watched this clip and ask yourself, what am I doing now that I like and don't like?
Mm-hmm.
What do I want to do? And those two things combined will help me or someone like me, or Jose or Gabe or Kirsten or David, help you navigate that choice, because there isn't one right answer. Look, if the 24 to 90 was the same weight as one of the primes and the same sharpness at f2, awesome. I would just say get that. But I'm pretty sure the laws of physics don't allow that, or if they did, it would be like $500,000, and
I think
they'd sell
even
one.
then, even then,
So yeah, even then it's probably not.
it would be made of unobtainium.
Exactly. So it's a balancing act of all the things we just spoke about, which I think it's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that there's a lot of context that you need to give yourself to make that decision properly. Okay, we did it.
I would also say there's another factor.
Oh yes, what is it?
Well, discipline,
True.
which I lack.
Yeah.
I believe in, my motto is take everything.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather have
Yeah.
more than I need than, less so. But I got to say, it teaches discipline, photography-wise, to say, I only have a 28, a 50, and a 90, and I have my feet. And I'm going to work within those bounds to make the pictures based on the equipment that I'm carrying. And it forces you, and it's not to say that you're not going to get great pictures, because I think you will.
Yeah.
It's just going to force you, kind of the same way that the Q2 does. The Q2 forces you to say, I've got to make this work as a 28 shot. And that's kind of nice. It's kind of refreshing. Or going out just with an M and a 35-1.4, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's freeing. It's really, there is that other side of it where primes, I don't know, speak to me in some way.
Yeah.
And to come back, just bring this full circle with the S system. Josh mentioned there's a zoom for the S. I didn't really use it. I always used prime lenses. I used a 24, 30, 45, 70, and 120. And if it fell in between there, well, I either had to get closer or rethink my composition. But it forces you, when you have prime lenses, to be more disciplined and to train your eye to see in those focal lengths and work within those bounds.
There you go. So
there's
a
reason
worthy
for that.
Discussion, and one that's not going to be the same answer for everyone.
My point would be, I think there's, we talk about or discussions. I think this is an and discussion.
I would agree. I mean, everyone's budget and space and requirements are going to be different. But yes, I think in a perfect world, you have a zoom and one or two primes that are going to be the focal lengths you shoot the most. You could start with a zoom, go on a couple of trips, look at your metadata like David just did, and see, oh, I spent a lot of time at 35 or 36, maybe I'll grab a 35. Or I spent a lot of time at whatever. You get what I'm saying. You can then use the zoom experience to help dictate.
This is very telling. And Jose, go back to the screen just for a second. So out of my initial selects, and apologize if this is very small for some people, but I've got like 100 and some pictures here, 105 pictures. And it's pretty even distribution as I go through the list. There's a notable exception here, 9 at 35, 4 at 50, okay. 23 at 90.
Yeah. And that's why we always say we like the 24 to 90 because it's nice to have that.
So
90
if I was really honest with myself, I'd say a 24 to 90 and a 90 f2.
There you go.
It's
right.
just
that would be the right kit for you in that sense. Let's go back to us, Jose, and David, pull up the questions.
Yeah.
Let's see where we're at.
Whoa, everything.
Thank you, Logan, for the super chat. How does the SL28 compare to the 35? I've shot them both.
Great.
They're the same, I would say, in terms of like performance. That wouldn't be, let me backtrack. I wouldn't choose one or the other based on its performance. I would choose it based on the focal length I needed. I've spent a day with the 28 and I've spent a day with the 35. And I look at those photos and I don't look at one from one lens and go, well, if only I had the 35, it would be sharper. I don't think it like that. When I got my hands on the 28 SL for the first time, thank you, John. The first thing I did was put it against the 28 Lux-M, which was the standard bearer at the time for the 28 focal length. And I thought they'd be close, but the 28 SL, I hate to say it crushed it, but it crushed it. So good. So I wouldn't choose, it's not like an M, right? Where you have the 35 FLE and then you have the 35 APO and then the 2814 is still a tier below. The SL primes, they have some differences, but they're negligible. And I'm not going to choose one of those 5 based on what performance metrics there may be. I'm just going to choose.
You're talking about infinitesimally small.
I'm just going to choose it based on the creative decision that
absolutely
I need to make. So,
which is kind of an amazing freedom because you don't have to decide on quality. They're all exceptional.
Yeah.
I mean, we can say, I know it's going to upset some people, but without a doubt, the APO-Summicron-SLs are the best lenses in their respective focal lengths of any lens that Leica's made for any system by a lot.
Yeah, but I'm gonna answer this question that I know I'm kind of like starting at the bottom. He's cheating, but John says, would you prefer the 70 to 180 2.8? It says sitting there, but we don't have one.
We don't have one here.
But I know that's an R lens, or the 90-280. We've told the story before. When the 90-280 first came out, David went out and tested it against the 180 2.8 APO R lens, which was the standard bearer for Leica telephoto lenses. It was an incredible, it still is an incredible lens. The differences were so dramatic between the 90-280 was so much better that David went out again and redid the test.
I thought I screwed up.
He thought he messed it up. There is no comparison, sorry to say, in terms of outright performance. Forget about all the other benefits between the 90-280 and any of the R tele lenses. This thing is ridiculous.
Demolishes every telephoto that Leica's ever made for the R system by...
Look, the R lenses are fun. I just put a 105-280 on the SL2. It's fun. It's something different. It's quirky. It's weird. But if you're just looking for performance, forget about the fact you have autofocus, stabilization, weather sealing, all that. This thing is insane.
Bomber.
Yeah. Okay, but I shouldn't be skipping ahead. Jose, please ask us a question.
All right. So I saw one here that was a great follow-up question to what we're discussing. Okay, yes. My SL2-S comes with a 24-70 2.8, and now I'm ready for a prime. I'm torn between 75 APO or 90 APO. Please advise.
I mean, I'm going to say, especially since you have a 24-70 and not a 24-90, and I love 90 a lot, I'd say 90. You're going to get more utility out of that because it's something longer than what you have. There's no overlap. That being said, if you prefer to shoot portraits rather than landscape or detail shots like I do, 75 tends to be a bit more comfortable for a portrait focal length than 90. But again, that's personal taste.
Yeah.
Like Josh said, creativity is the only deciding factor here. These lenses are essentially the same optical design, just one's a 75, one's a 90. They are outstanding. I did a whole review on the 75, which you can check out on Reddit forum. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's great.
I would agree. I think the 24 to 72.8 is a lens I've been using a lot. And I know there's questions in the chat about that lens. David and I did a whole episode on that lens, 2 hours, just on the 24 to 72.8. If there's a question you have after watching that episode that we didn't answer, ask me. Because we covered so much. We compared it against the 24 to 90, against the Sigma 24 to 72.8,
Yeah.
against tons and tons of stuff. So
Too many test charts.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So I think from a contrast standpoint, in terms of the way the 24 to 70 renders and the way the APO SL primes render, they really pair well because they're so different. So I agree with David. I think a 90 to increase your the options you have, because you can do something totally different with the 90, whereas the 75 will be different, but not as much.
Yeah.
Good question. Okay, Jose, what's next?
All right. So, when does it make sense to purchase an SL Type 601?
Josh, you want to take it?
I think we can both answer this question.
I mean, look.
Why don't you start?
Okay, I'll start. First of all, Leica was very late getting in the game for mirrorless cameras. It's funny, now we call them mirrorless cameras. Back in that evolution, they were called evil cameras, electronic viewfinder interchangeable lens. That's kind of like gone away, thankfully. We're just back to mirrorless. And I remember a question and answer session with the LHSA back in, was it
You
20?
can't just answer the question, can you? You gotta,
No,
you gotta,
2010.
You
What-
gotta,
I'm
gotta
getting
wax
there. I'm getting there.
nostalgia.
I'm getting there. So the point is, like I said, we'll come out with a mirrorless camera when the technology is ready. Because those first electronic mirrorless camera, whatever you want to call it, they were like 1 megapixel EVFs or sub megapixel EVFs. They were a huge amount of mirror blackout or viewfinder blackout when you took a picture. They were laggy. Just not a very good experience, and one that Leica didn't want to embark on or be known for as their first camera. So they waited, and they waited, and they waited, and 2015 rolls around, and they came out with the SL601. And
There it is.
it's not that much different than the SL2 of today. It's the same battery. It's a Maestro 2 image processor, which is still plenty fast. And it has a 4.4 megapixel electronic viewfinder, which today is still one of the nicest viewfinders on the market. 6 years later, the camera shoots 11.
It was launched 6 years ago, but it clearly was in development
No,
for even longer than that.
Right.
So that's how future-proof this camera has
Yes.
become.
Weather sealed,
Yes.
Wi-Fi. It actually has GPS, while the new ones
They
don't.
got rid of it on the new ones.
11 frames a second.
And the thing is-
touchscreen, all that.
You get one of these for like $2,000, give or take, depending on whatever. They're super usable. You gain access to the L mount, which means SL lenses, adapters, L mount alliance lenses, the full system. And then if you decide to upgrade to an SL2 or an SL2-S down the line, you can. But this is, in my opinion, probably the most relevant but replaced.
Yes.
Like maybe the 246 monochrome is they're tied.
Sure.
They're tied. David and I both shot the heck out of one of these, including this exact one, and we still love it. And we still sell them all the time, and people still show us amazing photographs on these all the time.
Yep.
Don't discount this one.
Do not rule it out. And yeah, for the price, it's an awesome way to get into the system.
Yeah.
And let's say even if you have an M system and you're kind of want to dip your toe in the water, that's a great way because throw an M adapter on there
There you go.
and
And again, you're building your
working on
kit, and then if you decide to upgrade cameras, you don't have to change anything. Battery's the same, lenses are the same, adapters are the same. Maybe
everything is different. The grip.
the grip and the thumbs up. Okay, so don't buy a grip if you know you're going to upgrade later, but that's it. Good question, though.
Fantastic camera.
Next.
All right. What is the equivalent no noise ISO between the SL2 and SL2-S?
That one's slightly challenging because of the large resolution difference. So this is one of those, it depends on your intended output. But let's say we scale the SL2 output down to the SL2-S. What would you say? 32, 6400, somewhere in there?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah. I mean, I'll shoot the SL2-S at 25,000,
Right.
literally without thinking. I mean, I literally don't think about it. I just put it.
Just
go.
cheating.
Yeah, I think about it. If you look at my shooting, because of the image stabilization on the SL2, I often will go slower with a lower ISO to guarantee that I'm getting a clean image.
Yeah. All
On
right.
the SL2S, you just don't worry about it.
I'm laughing at your question, Michael Koss, because it is hilarious. David and I are
Where's
both nerds, but it's objectively rank lens quality of native Leica L glass on an SL2 compared to our lenses and M lenses on the same SL2 body. Please use a 100-point scale. Come on. I mean, I love your enthusiasm.
Oh,
I can't do that because that's we're not optical engineers. What I can tell you is that when it comes to the traditional metrics of lens performance, center sharpness, corner sharpness, vignetting, distortion, color, all those things,
field flatness.
all that. There is nothing that any M lens does better, including 35 APO, 75 Noctilux, 50 APO, etc., than the SL APO primes. The differences can be very, very dramatic if you compare, let's say, a 35 APO SL to a 35 Summilux M. Less so when you compare the 35 APO M, which I did in our 35 APO M episode.
That's also like cutting edge, crazy.
Yeah. So I can't do that. At least not in a way that it would be
let's
accurate.
Let's take a simple one, right? So 75 APO M, great little lens.
I'm gonna give this one a 71.4 out of 100. I shouldn't make fun of you. No, I love that question because I wish there was an easier way for me to answer that. Because I understand why you're asking, obviously, right? Because you want to understand
the difference.
The differences, and that's why I spent all my time doing testing in the back of our store.
Well, I still think,
Yeah.
and let's see if you guys agree on the chat.
Yeah.
I think that we should do a versus episode. I just don't know how we would organize it because there's so many different things that we could match up. Like, you know.
And if you email me, Michael, I'm happy to send you shots from some of the testing. Although I probably have to mail you a thumb drive, but it's to me. The difference between really good and perfect is what it comes down to. If I had to give it an arbitrary rating, I would say like a B- to an A+, maybe.
That's not on a scale of 100.
No, okay, fine. An 82 to a 95.
Right. Well, the 75 APO here, I see Jose's got a close up on me.
Yeah.
So the 75 APO, is. Thank you. The 75 APO, these are both APO-Summicrons. One's an M, one's an SL. Obviously, there's a big size difference. And a lot of people like shooting M lenses on the SL body because they get image stabilization.
Yeah.
And they get a much smaller lens. You can fit a much more variety in a much smaller bag than you can even with the SL primes. But if I was to say objectively, let's say numeric scale, which is kind of absurd, but
Again, we're giving you a hard time,
I don't
Michael,
know.
but we actually are grateful for that question. So thank you for asking.
okay,
That's why we're answering it.
I would rate this lens more like an 85 to 90.
See, I wouldn't. See, because he hasn't tested them side by side like I have.
I haven't, but I love this. I love this lens for what it is, for a portrait
So
lens.
David's rating is his gut rating,
my
right?
feeling.
That's what he's feeling. But I can tell you, this is more like a 65,
No.
and that's more like a 95. That's the difference, wide open, between the M lenses we know and love and think are the cat's meow and the SL APO primes. They are that much better.
Wow.
Now we're talking wide open. They're that much better that it's borderline hilarious.
Now hand me that 90 and I'll agree with you.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now this is a 90 APO M. Here we go, 90 APO M against a 90 APO-Summicron-SL. And I'm gonna say this is a 99, okay, because this is about as close to perfect as you can make a lens. And I'd say this one is 73 in relative terms.
Okay.
This is good.
Yeah.
It really is. This is not a
Honestly,
bad lens. by
M
any means.
lenses are not designed for that reason. M lenses are designed to be magical, to use a non-scientific term. I think that. They're designed to be vignetting, to have a very fast focus fall off from the center, to give you a little bit of aberration, spherical aberration, to make it look interesting. Yes, there are some M lenses that are not designed like that. 50 and 35 APO
Yeah, like 50
would be
APO.
the two I would think of. But most M lenses have a different MO, different function.
Well,
than-
all right, let's dig in on that one, right?
Okay.
So 50 APO M.
Yes.
This happens to be my lens from my M kit. Great lens, one of the best M lenses ever made. The 50 APO SL. If we want to speak in relative terms, I'm gonna give this a solid A because this is a stellar lens.
Okay.
Let's say this is it's a solid 94, 95.
Okay.
Okay. Well, the 50 APO is another 99. It is that much better even than the 50
all the
APO.
standard bearers that we had in M, the game has changed with the APO SL primes. And I say this all the time, and it sounds like I'm just shilling for these lenses, but the reality is if you ever could get near one of these things and just try it wide open, you're going to look at the corners in the center and you're going to go, oh, now I know what that crazy guy was talking about. That plaid shirt wearing guy.
And that beautiful fall off too. The out of focus areas are so buttery smooth. It's not, and I hate that word. I really hate that word that's clinical because it's not.
It's not.
It's so beautiful in the out of focus rendering. Part of what makes it pop in that 3-dimension, Leica likes to show the little graph of how rapid it is from the point of focus to out of focus areas. Faster on the Summicron SLs than it is on M lenses.
Somebody asked, why is the SL unpopular in Japan? I had no idea it was unpopular in Japan. If you're in Japan, tell me why it's unpopular.
I don't know.
Because people love it here in the States. Are we doing a Japan workshop?
Yes.
So we're gonna bring a bunch of SLs to Japan and we're gonna crash the party. Jose, sorry, we were dramatically sidetracked.
That was a huge tangent.
Also, I mean, I encourage anybody that's ever down in the store here in Miami, come in, bring an SD card, and shoot a few photos on these SL lenses, and you'll see why we can
Yeah.
this stuff. Like it's insane,
It's
wide open all the time, always.
it's really something
Yeah,
else.
So, all right.
Question.
A question here. How would you, from Jim, how would you compare the 75 APO SL to the 75 Noctilux-M?
Sure, I've done that comparison. That's
I'll let
Jimmy.
you
Jimmy
take that
asked me.
away.
I can just come in the
Take it
store
away.
next time and I'll show it to you. But 75 APO, sharper. Center, they're very close. In fact, I would say the two closest comparisons between M and SL in the center would be 35 APO, M and SL, 75 Noctilux, M and SL 35 APO, which is a real testament to how good the 75 Noctilux is,
Right.
despite the fact that it's a Noctilux, which in the traditional sense is not supposed to be that sharp.
Right.
But as soon as you get off center, the 75 APO wins. It also focuses a lot closer. But the 75 Noctilux has way more magic, way more character. It has, even though it's only half a stop,
It's more than half a stop.
2/3 of a stop faster.
2/3, yeah.
The way it's designed, the
rendering
is amazing. As you guys know, I love that lens, and I promised myself I would go one episode without talking about it, and I have
He didn't
failed.
bring it. He didn't
I
bring
even
it.
bring it with me. But I adore that lens, and I use it on the SL2 quite a bit. If I had a choice, if I was going to get one tele M lens and one tele SL lens, and I didn't want to have them be the same, I'd get a 75 Noctilux M and a 90 APO SL, and they would be a dream to have together for sure.
Next question.
Nice. All right, let's see. Would you use image stabilization when using the 90 to 280?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it is
Not on a tripod.
not on a tripod. If you're shooting on a tripod, disable image stabilization, especially for long exposure, because it can, do things. I cannot get over how good the image stabilization is on the SL2. The 90 to 280 especially, because you're getting in-body image stabilization in conjunction with lens-based stabilization in the 24 to 90 and the 90 to 280.
Jose, was that you I saw the other day doing like 1 second handheld exposures, or was that Gabe?
I mean, I was doing that too.
I think it was Gabe.
Okay, because I think it was Gabe in the store doing these like crazy half-second, 1 second long handheld exposures,
Oh, I got you.
which is insanity. I don't even understand that.
So, David, if you can expand on, does it help that both the SL2 has stabilization and the lens also has
Yes,
stabilization? Do
it
they both
combines.
work?
So you get an effective, you get like 6 stops when you use an optically stabilized lens with the sensor-based stabilized SL2 or SL2-S.
Right, so the only two SL lenses that are stabilized in lens are the 24 to 90 and the 90 to 80. All the other ones are not. And that was really because the SL601 didn't have a stabilized sensor, so it was nice to have the in-lens stabilization for that.
Yeah, for sure.
He was trying to find some photos.
Yeah, I'm gonna find. I didn't tag it, but I have.
Well, I saw a question, Jose, at the bottom there about the 90 to 80, what else we use it for. 90% of my car photography is done with that lens. I love the compression. I love the performance. I'll go to a car show or a car shoot, and that'll be the only lens I have on me for an entire day. That's how much I love it. So I think for that perspective, it's very handy. I haven't really shot sports with it yet. I shot car racing with it, or like at a racetrack, but that's still in the same theme.
All right, this isn't like the most magical picture in the world, but it's a testament to this. So here is the
Kind of magical.
the 24 to 90. It's not horrible. I mean, I haven't done anything to it except my preset.
Anyway, that's
All
my
right.
point.
So it's 24 to 90, shot at f11, trying to carry depth of field here, and actually get motion blur. So I went down to ISO 100. It was just like a roadside stop. I didn't actually take my tripod with me. I just had the camera. So this is a quarter of a second handheld. And you can see the water moving. I would say that's acceptably sharp for me.
That's very sharp.
That's very sharp. This is 1/4 of a second. Again, handheld. It's insane. And I just picked one of these at random. I have an entire series. They're all tack sharp at all different focal lengths. Or not focal lengths, at all different shutter speeds. So it's kind of bananas that you can get, or stuff like this. This was handheld. Oh, here you go. I haven't actually looked at this, so we're gonna jump into this together.
Real time.
This is real time. So this is the 90 to 280.
Go to develop module. So it just renders so slow in Limburg.
And this is the 90 to 280 at 140 millimeter at 1/3 of a second handheld.
That's crazy. Oh man, handheld. You sure that was handheld?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's handheld.
No, I just see a little.
No.
Okay.
I did. I handheld this whole thing.
Okay.
So
okay.
there you go. Because
That
this was
is
just a
wild.
foggy. The light was changing, whatever,
That's
and
so sick.
it's kind of a can I do it? And I have gotten such a high level of confidence in this camera,
Right.
and specifically hand holding, certainly with the zooms, because they have the built-in OIS.
And I think you touched on something I want to expand on for a moment, which is you have a high level of confidence.
Yes.
And that statement to me is what makes the SL, you can come back to us, Jose. What makes the SL system so good for so many people is the performance of the stabilization, the performance of the zooms, the primes, wide open, stop down, the weather sealing, the accuracy of the finder. All of these things give you a level of confidence to do the kind of shots that David did, where you're not burdened or held back by the equipment, or you're not thinking about it. All you're doing is making images, which is, of course, the ultimate goal of any piece of photographic equipment. So I really think you hit on an excellent point. But we're linking on this question too long. So let's go to another question, please, Jose.
Well, because I think it's a
No, I know. It's cool.
crazy good.
It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at,
Stop looking at pictures.
I'm looking at this. This is not a fascinating picture by any measure. But
Okay, Jose, why don't we look at one more?
one more. Okay, this again, 24 to 90, just handheld at 1/15 of a second, and you can see I'm at ISO 800, but it is tack sharp, and that's zoomed in. So that's just a handheld shot in a ghost town inside of a little building. You shouldn't be able to do this with a high resolution camera, 47 megapixel. I shouldn't be able to do this at 50 millimeter and hand holding it at 1/15 of a second. You shouldn't be able to do this. And yet, and you can come back.
There it is.
And yet, it's that confidence level based on experience of the tens of thousands of images I've shot with the SL2 now. I trust it. I know the limits. I know when I'm going to get a sharp picture or not. And yes, there's techniques to, hold it a little steadier, the way you're standing, the way you're breathing, which, by the way, was a little bit dangerous in Colorado because
You get passed out for altitude sickness.
I have this inherent thing, and I know all these people are going to comment on it, but I tend to hold my breath when I take a shot. I know you're supposed to exhale when you take a shot, but I hold my breath, and it's subconscious because I've done it so many times. And I'm like, snap.
You're going to pass
snap,
out at
snap, and
10,000
I'm like,
feet.
oh my gosh, I forgot to breathe, and you get a little lightheaded, but
Minor thing. We'll get you some oxygen next time.
I had oxygen.
Next question, please. Of course you did.
All right, wait 1 second. Josh, do you want to go over a few faster questions? Just
Yeah,
'cause
let's
we
do a
have
couple. Let's do a
good
little bit of a
amount.
speed round.
Yeah, because we do have a good amount, so maybe we
Fire
can,
away. Fire away.
Let's see. Can you customize the buttons on the quick menu?
Not yet. When I say that, I don't actually know if you'll ever be able to, but
You're talking about the touchscreen menu, right?
yeah, I hope so. That was a feature introduced
Yeah.
later, so hopefully Leica will continue to add on to it. But as of now, no, you cannot customize the quick menu.
But so it'd be interesting, like the TL interface, if you could drag them
It
around.
would be sweet.
Yeah.
It would be sweet.
What is the Leica SL2's long exposure limit?
A long, very
I
long.
don't even know.
It's long.
Let's see.
It's not something that I have the patience for.
Yeah, I would never really go that high, so I'll put it at
I think
ISO.
it's at least 60 minutes.
ISO 100, manual
I
mode.
mean, it's a race. It's a race.
It's a race.
Let's see.
Like a thumb. It's like a. Here we go. Bulb 30 minutes on the SL2-S that I'm holding. in
And
my
it
hand.
is. It's 30 minutes, but I'm pretty sure it's longer than that if you go into bulb. So
Well,
yeah,
how much
on
time we
here-
have left in the show? We'll just no, I'm kidding. I'm
gonna look it
at
up.
least 30 minutes. At least 30 minutes.
So
Next
long
question.
exposure. David, do you still use the joystick for focusing?
He does.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah, neither of
all-
us use shutter button focus.
Nope.
We are
All the time.
back button focus
Back button focus for the win.
till the day we die.
Why is that? Quick
Because
answer.
there's too many. To put two incredibly important functions on one button is never good. When I say that, I mean focusing and shooting both on the shutter button. No. I separate them. That means I have very precise control over when and where the camera is activating the autofocus and when the picture is being taken, and I'm not worried about them interfering with each other.
Yeah, I call it decoupling. Primarily for landscape photography, why it matters to me is I'm set up on a tripod. I've got everything dialed in. And if you know me, the other pro tip is I use, and you can jump to the close-up camera real quick. I'm going to stop this down so we can see. Okay, if you, it's kind of an awkward
You
angle.
there?
I'm okay.
Okay.
All right. And you'll notice that scale changing, but I want to get it really sharp so you can see. Okay, so what I'm doing to achieve hyperfocal distance is I'm going to keep infinity right there. So I got 3 point something meters to infinity at f11 at 24 millimeters. That is the focus that I want. I do not want to use autofocus at all. I'm dialing it in by number right there. So when I press the shutter, I don't want it to refocus. I just want it to take the picture. So I'm totally decoupling that functionality, yet I also want it fast enough where I can just tap the screen or tap the joystick and hold it in to focus if I want to use autofocus or when I want to use autofocus.
There we go.
So I don't have separate user modes for when I'm shooting hyperfocal or when I'm shooting handheld. Because it's the same function. I don't have to remember to change modes. I just keep it there.
There we go. Next.
I'm still looking up the
Okay, you take
long
your
exposure.
time there. Jake.
Thank you, thank you.
Does the electronic shutter affect bokeh?
No, I say no. I haven't tested that.
30 minutes.
I can't imagine that it would.
I don't think it would.
No, I don't think so.
All right. What is the battery life in the two models?
My experience is the same between the two pretty much, but it depends on how often you use playback, Wi-Fi, if you use enhanced live view, if you have the screen turned up really bright, temperature. You could shoot. I've had batteries last an hour. I've had batteries last 5 hours. Like here's my rule about batteries. I've talked about this 1,000 times. I'm not going to talk about it 1,001 times.
say.
I will not compromise my photography around battery life ever. Because if I go to some amazing event, some amazing location with the SL2 or the SL2-S and I'm shooting my butt off, I am not going to say, well, I don't want to spend whatever dollars on another battery to miss out on having to go to that event all over again or travel to that location all over again. Why would I do that? That completely defeats the purpose. So my general kit is 4 batteries. Pretty much no matter what camera I'm going out with, Q2, M10, Velux, doesn't matter. Because I may only use 2, I may use 3, I may use all 4. But what I've done through my own photography is determined that I'm pretty much not going to use more than 4 in a day. And that allows me to shoot any way that I want, to use Wi-Fi as much as I want, to do whatever I want, and not have to spend even a moment thinking about, ooh, the bar is getting low and I don't have a replacement. I better slow down.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say
yeah.
I didn't slow down at all if you know how I shoot. What I like to say, what I lack.
You say you did or didn't?
I did not.
Oh, I thought you said you did. Okay.
Yeah, what I
take
always like
back
to
my
say
handshake.
is, what I lack in talent, I make up for in volume. So I am not shy about taking all the pictures. In fact, on the trip, with many other trips, I'm always trying to encourage other people, shoot more. Like, you don't have to stop shooting. The light keeps changing. Keep shooting. All it's going to cost you is all hours of your life, pouring through Lightroom. So I keep basically, I keep 2 extra batteries plus a third plus 1 in the camera. So I've got 4 total, and that has never failed to get me through.
Yeah, we both do that. We both are 4 batteries.
1 in the camera, 3 extras.
And I always try to put a label with the date that I bought it or took it out of the box.
It's a good idea.
And 18 months or 24 months, I try to swap out my oldest battery with the new one and use the new one for my main, and then relegate the oldest one to like super duper backup spare. Yeah, exactly. But the photographs are everything. And I'm going to do everything in my power to not let my equipment stand in the way of the photographs that I want. The only thing standing in my way is my own lack of talent. But the camera and the lenses and the batteries, they're not going to do it. Good question, though. What do we got in the chat?
A lot.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, so many things.
I'm going to let Jose do it. Jose?
Yeah.
Jose.
Yes. Chat.
All right, give us something. Give us something.
Right. Which SL lens do you recommend for product photography?
Well, it depends on the kind of products you're talking about. I mean, tabletop photography is traditionally done with a macro lens, which doesn't exist in the native.
Although you can get pretty close with the SL lenses, so.
Probably the 75.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Watch the macro episode and then
50, 75,
Yeah.
90 also focuses pretty close at 90.
True.
They all focus pretty close.
Yeah.
They have like a 1 to 5 reproduction ratio.
Watch the macro episode and then decide. That's what I say to that. Next question.
Please cover SL lens firmware updates after completing the latest SL2 firmware
It's confusing. It's confusing. Leica's release and our coverage of that release.
Well, let's see. So 24 to 90, I think is one that, or 24 to 70 didn't get an update, if my memory serves.
Some of the lenses were updated, some are not.
We're still on 1.0 for that lens, but that's normal for Leica. Leica has rolled out firmware updates for S lenses, TL lenses, and SL lenses over the years, and it's rare that all the lenses get an update, and it's rare that all the lenses are the same version. So these days, what Leica does is they incorporate the lens firmware inside the latest camera firmware. So when you have the latest firmware on your camera and you mount the lens, if the lens needs to be updated, the camera's firmware will do it automatically. So you don't have to worry about like, do I download the lens firmware and all that stuff. But we should show them what that looks like. Let me pull that up. One moment.
You have a lens that's not updated?
No. I'm going to show them what the linear focus control looks like.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Because that's really what was added.
We use that here in the studio.
Yeah, it's great. It's awesome. Let me get to it here.
While you're doing that, this is an interesting question.
Yes.
Jose, the last question in the chat.
My friend owns and uses the 16 to 35 and the 90 to 280. He is contemplating buying the 24-90 or the 50 APO SL next. Any thoughts?
Those are great choices. So on the one hand, you're jumping from 35 to 90, and if we were talking about an M system, it's only natural to slot in a 50 right between 35, 50, 90. I think, but what's telling to me is that he doesn't have a middle zoom or a middle focal length range. So is he shooting everything wide and everything long and doesn't care about the middle? And maybe he's not a 35 or a 50 shooter at all. And that's a little bit of a mystery to me, because usually someone would start with the middle and then either get wider or longer.
For me, it's going to come down to, is he looking for a lighter lens?
Yeah.
Or is he looking for a flexible lens? I'd probably get the 24 to 90.
The holy trinity.
Have the zooms, and then maybe add a used 50 APO SL at some point or something like that.
Yeah,
but let me show.
Then you have everything from 16 to 280 without any break.
So on the, let me try to get this. Here we go. Am I in focus? I can't even tell. There we go. Give me a second, David. Let me show this. So in the focusing menu on the SL2-S, you go into manual focus setup, and this is what you got with the lens firmware, which is the ability to control the degrees of rotation of the lens focus ring for focusing. So I use 360 a lot because it just feels good. If you want to be super, 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 super precise, you can go to maximum, which is more than a full turn to go from minimum to infinity. I just encourage you to play with it a little bit and see. The standard MF is a nonlinear focus, meaning it speeds up the action of manual focusing the faster you turn the ring, so it's not linear. Any of the degree settings will be linear. So if you're doing video work, you might want to have something shorter, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, we're using, I think on we're using 120 degrees for our close-up camera. The very camera you're looking at right now, we use linear focus.
I like 360 for stills, but again, so you have the choice. But that's what you got in the new lens firmware. So FYI, I suppose.
And I think also improved autofocus algorithm as well.
Yeah, some other doodads, but that's the main, like, most visible feature that you got.
Yeah.
I'm assuming we have no questions at all and we can be done, right?
Yeah, I think that's it. All right. Thanks so much. Oh, no.
No,
oh,
we
wait.
have
There's
80
like- I
billion
know.
questions.
Oh,
Which is
my
great. That's
gosh,
why we
yeah.
do the show.
All right.
Okay, marathon time. Let's go.
Does the 50 Summilux SL have the M look? If so, which M lens's characteristic is most similar?
The 50 Summilux SL is actually sharper than the 50 APO-M, but not as sharp as the 50 APO SL. So it slots in a weird place because it does have a nice focus fall off and a softer rendering than the 50 APO SL, but it's better optically than any 50 M lens. But if you wanted an experience closer to an M lens on the SL while still having an SL lens, meaning autofocus, weather sealing, etc., I would go with the 51.4.
Yeah, and just so you...
Oh,
Boom.
so that Jose.
It's almost convenient. I actually have a review of that lens right here on Red Dot Forum under the review section. So you can see the Summilux M50. And in addition to actually having real pictures, like this is a good example. I think we've probably shown this before of that just beautiful naturalistic look. So it's kind of the best of M, but sharper.
Yeah.
So that's, and I think that's, here's 100% crop. So it is just outstanding in terms of wide open performance. Super, super crisp and detailed, but the fall off is just like butter. And for those of you who also want more nerdiness, if you go all the way to the bottom, skipping over all the actual pictures, I do have comparison with the 50 Summilux M and the APO-Summicron-M.
There we go.
And you can actually see detail crops comparing all of these together, where you can actually get a look for yourself. So
Check it out. It's
we
pretty
have
cool.
all the information. It's on Red Dot Forum for the taking.
Next question.
But basically what Josh said.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. You're hired as a photojournalist for a day for the New York Times. You
Hooray!
take an SL or M10.
Depends.
Yeah.
If I'm going to shoot behind the scenes at a ballet, I'm bringing the M10. If I'm going to shoot...
Well, hold
but
on.
I'm being discreet.
Jose.
Electronic shutter.
Oh, true. Fair
Jose
enough.
shoots behind the scenes.
But I'm thinking about
for that
intimidation factor, where the M10 is much less intimidating. If I'm going to shoot a Super Bowl, I'm bringing the SL. I mean, I don't think that I can answer that question without knowing what the actual assignment is, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Having shot for many newspapers over the years, I would say there have been environments where I wish I had an M and environments where I wish I had an SL. Of course, I was shooting
True.
another brand back in the dark ages. But,
We don't talk about those
like
times.
the Miami days.
We don't talk about
back in the
those.
aughts. But
Oh, here's a question that you would like, Josh.
ask away.
How is the TL60 APO macro on the SL?
Amazing. I use that lens almost every single day. I have one bolted to the SL2 that sits on my desk. I do all my product photography with it. Now, we did do a whole macro episode, so you can check it out on there. Performance is crazy good. It's
good.
super light. One of my favorite, if not my most favorite, TL lenses, really almost any non-SL, but autofocus lens, I guess, on the SL2. So if you like doing close-up work, it focuses 1-to-1, crazy, crazy close. And it comes in silver. So if you want to be real cool, you can get a silver one. Jose.
All right. Perfect. Let's keep going. SL2-S for astrophotography. What lenses do you
I
suggest?
feel like every episode we have to answer an astrophotography
I know.
question, which is cool. I just don't know. I don't really do much astro stuff.
2814.
There you go. Yeah, M lens.
I mean,
Right.
M lens.
Yeah.
Crazy sharp.
I'm trying to get.
Yeah, what you want with astrophotography is you want a faster aperture, but it needs to be really sharp at wide open and needs to actually be sharp wide open at infinity, which isn't always an easy task because some fast lenses are really optimized for close focus performance, not for infinity. But the 2814, like many of the M lenses, I believe is a floating lens element and is very sharp everywhere. So if that's wide enough for your needs, a 2814 Summilux M.
There you go. Next question.
All right. What do you recommend for a Safari setup using
Or
the
a
SL
28
system?
Summicron.
Well, as we talked about before, the biggest area of lacking in the SL system is telephoto. There's no teleconverter. There's never going to be a teleconverter.
There's
Currently-
a teleconverter.
You could crop APS-C, yes, but there's no optical teleconverter.
No.
So currently, 280 millimeters is the longest you can get in a native Leica L-mount lens. You can go into the M-mount Alliance and get 100 to 400, things like that, which I've tried, and some of them are cool and they're not that expensive. But in terms of what Leica offers, 280 is as long as you can get. So that is an area that's lacking. I doubt they're going to fill that gap anytime soon because their interest is in between 14 and 280, so 16 and 280. Sorry, so I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for that. If I was doing a safari, I would just tailor my photography around things that were close enough for 280 millimeters. That's what I would do. Next.
We did have a question about the teleconverter. Why
There
do you
is,
say
yeah,
it's-
like I
There's the one.
said, they're not going to do it. They say just put it on a CL or put it in APS-C mode, and you get a 420 millimeter f4 20 megs on the SL2. That's another notch in the SL2's belt. Is if you want to increase the effective focal length of your lenses at hand, the SL2's APS-C 20 megapixels is far more usable than the SL2-S's APS-C 10 megapixels.
And you're still getting image stabilization.
Yes.
And you're seeing the full image. It doesn't look cropped.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, you're getting 90 to 280 in crop mode is going to be a 135 to 420. And it's still 2.8 to f4. So having a 420 f4 with image stabilization at 20 megapixel in a camera that can shoot 20 frames a second, it's not bad.
Pretty nice.
So
What's next, Jose?
50 Noctilux-M 0.95 compared to the 50 SL Summilux?
I wouldn't compare them. They're totally different. Their one lens is designed to be magical, soft, chromatic aberration vignetting. That's the Noctilux. The other is sharper than the 50 APO. They're too different. I mean, they're both the same focal length, but I wouldn't even use them in the same situation. The Noctilux is a lot of fun on the SL2. It's a blast because it's so easy to dial that magic in precisely. And the stabilization makes it very usable, but the 51.4 I could use every day. The Noctilux, I'd get tired of it after a while if I used it every day, in terms of like wide open type of stuff. There's too many compromises performance-wise. Hope that answered that question. Next.
Best on-camera flash for the SL system. For shooting people.
Another area that Leica is a bit lacking in, to be honest with you, we have the SF40 and the SF60.
I would use the SF40.
Yeah.
It's just simple, dials, two little dials. It works. I'm also a big fan of just A mode on flash rather than TTL, even though it works great in TTL. I just find A is faster, simpler. You just shoot and bounce it at the ceiling.
We don't do a lot of flash, obviously, because I use the SL2-S, crazy low light just fine. Although I get it. Flash is sometimes you need it. I'd go with an SF40 and use it as fill and be good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm doing a portrait shoot tomorrow with the SL2. The first time I used it since the firmware update. Has the eye detection improved?
They did do a face and body improvement.
Yeah,
right?
they did.
Yeah.
It's good.
Show them your article on 3.0 on Red.Forum. David has a really good article on Red.Forum about the new. Here we go, Jose. David, talk about that. Don't explain what it does. Let them read
everything.
Don't explain anything because we just talked about it last.
Yeah.
time.
So So there is a new autofocus algorithm for improved eye, face, head, body recognition, focus tracking.
So you can go on Red.Forum and you can read all this. Yes, there are improvements. We don't have the time to dive into this now.
But yes,
there is.
and it works pretty well.
Yes. Okay. Next question.
Right. 1 second. All right. Any solutions for wirelessly triggering the shutter?
Josh mentioned a couple.
Wirelessly, the only current solution would be
Photos app.
the Photos app, or I guess is your finger a wire?
Self-timer?
No.
There's no wire right here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No, the Leica Photos app is the only way to do that right now, and it does work fine for me anyway.
Or self-timer, I mean.
Or self-timer. Yeah, good point.
That's what I use.
Yeah,
I just use a 2-second self-timer. It's always available. I don't have to look for it.
You could also use, and I probably talked about this before, the interval function to set a custom self-timer. So if you go, I'll show this real quick. If you go in drive mode and you go to interval shooting, interval is time lapse, right? So if you wanted to do, the sunrise sequence or whatever, and under interval, you've got 3 settings. You've got how many pictures in the time lapse, how much time in between each picture, and how much time before it takes the first one. Because you may be setting up the camera hours before the actual start of the photos is going to begin. The trick is you just set the number of frames to 1 and set the countdown to whatever you want, and that countdown setting becomes your custom self-timer. So if you want a 6-second self-timer, you just say 1 frame and countdown of 6 seconds. Interval doesn't matter because it's only one frame, and now you have a 6-second self-timer. So little hack for you.
That is a super hack right there.
Yeah. I use it. It's nice. Yeah. Because sometimes if it's windy or you got a really long lens, 2 seconds is not enough.
Also, another pro tip, I use intervalometer for the most, like, I don't use it what it's designed for.
Yeah.
That's how I take group photos. When we go on workshops,
Yeah.
I use an intervalometer,
Okay.
and I set it with a 10-second delay and 20 seconds, one shot every 2 seconds. I set the camera up on tripod. I run, but not that fast because I allow myself 10 seconds. Get in the shot. Boom, boom, boom. I say, okay, everyone smile. Okay, it's taken 5-10 shots. Now everyone be goofy. And we do it. And that's it. No. So if you want to do family photos where you're in it, definitely use intervalometer. It's like this magic secret weapon, and no crying kids or barking dogs or whatever. And you don't have to be running back. Remember in Monument Valley? Jumping over the rail.
I do remember that. That was traumatizing.
Right. So it's traumatizing for me. I was like running back and forth to the camera to trigger it. Don't move, don't move, don't move. Here, you just one press, you're done. You just pose, and 1 out of 20 photos is going to be perfectly good. So that's my pro hack for intervalometer. I'm sure you could probably use it for real things too.
Yeah. Well, we like for ridiculous
I like it for
things.
group photos.
What's next?
All right. What will you choose for your street photography in the SL system?
Well, I think street photography is a kind of a pretty wide blanket. I think depends on the kind of street photography you like to do. I've seen some photographers go out with a 90 on their M's, for example, and make incredible street portraits or street photography from a distance. I've seen people go out with a 24 and get real close. So I think on average, the traditional lenses for street shooting are 28 and 35.
Yeah.
Either of those two would get you started pretty good.
Oh, but see, yes. I mean, that's true. Yes. I think and I know, like, again, why do I talk about the Q? This is an SL episode. But I think that a Q2 or Q2 monochrome is a great complement to an SL. They essentially, this is a Q2 monochrome. Essentially, a Q2 has the same sensor that's in the SL2. They match very, very well together, and it's an excellent 28 millimeter lens. So I'd probably pair an SL2 with a 35 or a 50 and a Q2 with a 28.
I like Victor's question. You're doing a high-end fashion shoot with the SL2-S. What is the perfect watch to wear to show your absolute cool? Ooh. We'll have to do a whole episode on watches, though. I would say like a Newman Daytona. Is there anything cooler than that?
Can you afford that?
He didn't ask if I could afford it. He didn't ask that. I didn't realize it was a budget. Or maybe like...
what about a super classic, like 1960s era Submariner or something?
Ooh, that would be sick. Like a red sub, like Louis J. has would be super
Yeah.
cool. Or there was a Singapore edition of the Aquanaut. It has like an orange strap that I think is like the coolest thing ever.
Any of John Mayer's
Yeah.
custom Patek Philippe's would fit the bill.
Ooh, there's so many, but
There's so many.
we could do a whole episode about that, which we'll never do because it'll still be going. I saw another question. I just wanted to grab. Oh, from Christian there. Focus assist. Does it work with M lenses on the SL2? No. So if you're talking about the automatic magnification when you turn the focus ring, that only works with SL lenses because the SL2 doesn't know when you're turning the focus ring of an M lens. M's know because it touches the rangefinder cam in the body and there's a mechanical connection there.
There's a but. If you watched from the beginning and you saw how I set up my custom functions on here, the upper front button right here, I have set to magnification for that very reason.
Or focus assist is the term.
Focus assist.
To use the term he's using.
Yeah.
But with when you mount an M lens on the SL2, the joystick also automatically becomes
Magnification
as well. So it's
The
but
back-
no, it's not. There's no automatic magnification with M lenses.
Yeah. This also, you tap it and any non-native SL lens, so R lens, M lens, magnifies. Manual focus lenses.
We're getting watch suggestions. Well, I think what needs to happen is if you think you have a good idea for a watch, send it to me, and I'll wear it on the show, and then we'll decide. We'll have a poll. I may hang on to it for a couple of years, but I promise you it'll be in good hands. Enzo will not be allowed to lick it. Was it ready?
It is a cool watch. An original.
Someone
cool.
asked, so you have Noctilux, so you have APO Prime. We did
Kinda
talk
covered
about
that,
We talked
yeah.
about that. So just when we're done, rewind. We covered that. I want to answer Column's Wheels question about the grip because I was playing with that.
Okay.
Do you guys use the Leica grip for the SL2 or the SL2-S? And if I'm doing a bunch of headshots or if I'm shooting sailboat racing, which is a lot of verticals, yes, because to save yourself going like this, when you can go like this, is awesome. Otherwise, not often because I don't really need the extra battery in the body. I just have it in my pocket.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump on that.
But comfort-wise, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Jose.
All right.
We have a vote for Panerai, too.
So are we saying that SL lenses are sharper than M lenses?
Yes.
Can I
Yes.
say that? Yeah. Okay.
Next.
Definitely. Best solution for using high-speed sync on strobes for the SL.
There isn't a way to do that right now, other than using the Leica SF60.
Yeah, that's the only one.
with
Maybe
the-
one day,
with the
Profoto, if you're
Leica.
watching, please do that.
Yeah, with the remote.
Yeah, you could use the SFC1 and the SF60 high-speed sync, but you can't use any like Profoto or Broncolor stuff. At least not now for high-speed sync.
We kind of touched on this, but what are the differences between SL2, let's say, and S3 system?
They're very different.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit already. I would just rewind to that. I think
very,
they're-
very different cameras.
they're fundamentally different tools. It's kind of like a Formula One car versus a Ferrari, right? Ferrari is incredible and it does a lot of really good things. You can drive it to the grocery store. Formula One car can do a lot of those things, but when you put it on a racetrack, there's nothing better. So it's a matter of one being at home everywhere and another being a master in one place. That's the best analogy I can make. Next.
All right, let's see. Any problems when adapting M adapter Ls to the SL601 or SL2 system?
No, it works great from day one. This adapter has been around since the day the SL601 was released, because even though they just launched it with the 24-90, from day one it was compatible with something like 300 lenses.
Well, didn't this come out with the original T? Or was it
did.
later?
Oh no, it did. It
Yeah,
did.
I think this came out
This
before
was
the SL,
right.
the year before in 2014 when the T-Type 701
Yeah,
came
this
out.
one is an L, but you'll notice that. So this is an M adapter L. The old ones are M adapter Ts because they were for the TL system, and they work. It's the exact same adapter. They work perfectly. It just has different lettering on it.
Yeah.
I'd like to tell you they'll be collectible, but I doubt that.
No. There's only a couple lenses that don't work on the SL2, like the 21
Super angular?
Super angular. Thank you. Some of those super early weird ones, but 99% of M lenses will work just fine.
Yeah.
All right, so going back to the stabilization, when using the zooms, when using a tripod, you turn it off?
Yes.
Yeah, we need the IBIS setting in the camera, which is just on or off, controls the sensor-based and the lens-based if relevant.
Unless it's super, super windy and your tripod is shaking.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I use image stabilization. But if I'm locked down, solid footing, no wind, turn it off.
David, did you develop a different preset for the SL2S?
This is what happens. David gives away a couple of presets, and now every time a new camera comes out, he has to develop it or else people get mad.
I need one too, that's why I'm asking.
I need one too. Any updates on that? The answer is no,
The answer is I just use my SL2 preset.
but he will eventually, and I promise I will keep prodding him
I get the same questions about M10R as well.
until he does it. So thank you for asking. Also, hi, Craig.
Yeah, I agree that the adapter is a must-have if you have an SL.
There's no reason not to have it.
Yeah. Well, if you bought an SL between July 1st and September
there's
30th,
really
you got
no
a
reason
free,
not
you
to
got a
have
free
it.
one. Until now, you got to buy it. But it's awesome.
Yeah.
We got through a pretty good amount of questions. I don't know if you guys want to...
I saw one I wanted to ask or answer. Old Leica film telephoto lenses to use on the SL2. If you're talking about R system lenses, yes. The Leica R adapter L allows you to mount any R lens, onto the SL, SL2, SL2-S. In terms of how they work, well, results may vary in terms of performance, but there's a lot of really cool, fun R lenses that have been made, like the 28 tilt shift and the 500 mirror lens and the 60 100 macros, 90 APO, 3514, a lot of cool stuff. So they do work. They will mount with the R adapter. The R adapter will pass through ROM contacts if they have it. But you're not going to get anywhere near the performance of a modern SL telephoto lens, like we talked about a little bit earlier.
So there was an interesting question that I see here. Can you use multi-shot in crop mode?
No.
Well, that would have been my answer as well. I just put it in crop mode, and multi-shot is not grayed out.
But does it actually work? Try to use it.
Well,
Put it on the table. Don't touch it.
Don't touch the table. Yes.
Is it working?
Yeah. Yeah, creating multi-shot image. Huh. But I have to put this in the computer. I have to see what resolution this is now.
You have a card reader here?
Yeah.
We're going to do it right now.
Yeah, and
These
you can see
these
here.
are real things happening right now.
Yeah, you can see. Zoom in real quick.
You know what? I bet you it's because the multi-shot came out first on the SL2. No, it came on the SL2 first. I feel like I've tried it before. Did it work?
I don't know, but we're going to find out right now.
Are you sure it was an APS-E mode? Well, I guess we'll look at the resolution and see.
Yeah, it was an APS.
This is very
mode.
exciting. Rarely do we get to do something we've never done before like that. So the anticipation is literally killing me.
Is it though?
Let's look at the size.
That's what I'm going to do.
Is the date right?
Yeah. Is that today?
But see, that's 300 megs. So it's no smaller.
Huh.
I bet you it doesn't actually.
Overrides the.
Yeah, I bet you it overrides it. No, it's a lower resolution.
It's
though.
smaller, yeah. That is fascinating. Okay.
Why would we know that already?
Hold on. So it's 1,976 by 7,328, which is 80 megapixels, which is exactly 4 times 20.
Yeah.
So guess what, guys?
But what's weird is you can't. But wait, put on the 60 macro and see what happens.
Oh no, you're looking at my math now.
Here, David, put on the 60 macro and see if it grays out multi-shot mode.
That is fascinating.
I guess if you wanted 80 megs or to make your lens a little bit longer, thank you for asking that.
Which means you could use it with the 90 to 280 at 420 and get an 80 megapixel shot.
You could get an
crop
80
mode.
megapixel 420 millimeter photo.
This is cool.
This is awesome. But I love these kinds of experiences.
Okay, let's see. I've got the 60 on here,
Okay.
and obviously I'm in APS mode, and multi-shot
It's grayed out.
is grayed out.
Interesting. I wonder. I'm going to do some more testing
Here.
this week with this because I want to try to.
That
I need to figure that out. But that is really.
that is fascinating.
I wonder if it has to do with the image circle
I don't know.
because it's a full frame lens. It still has access to a larger image circle, but it should make a difference.
Should make a difference. That's fascinating.
Really, really interesting. Okay. Something to discuss further later, and also to bug the Germans about. So I want to understand their logic.
Wait, hold on a second. So you're saying
Yeah.
we can use multi-shot in APS mode
With a full frame.
with full frame L mount lens, but we put on a crop mode L mount lens.
You can't.
You can't.
Yeah, that's weird to me.
But why?
Right. I will find out.
We're gonna find out.
That is a promise. Awesome question. Thank you for asking that because I would not have thought to even try.
I thought to try.
Well, we're almost out of time, so I don't know if there's any other searing questions.
An SL2 monochrome.
As we say 100 times, we don't know what's coming, so I have
Look,
no idea.
if you asked me 2 years ago if I ever thought a Q2 monochrome would be a thing, I'd say no.
Fair point. Like it's full of surprises,
Like it's full of surprise.
but we honestly have no idea. I'm all about it. Give me something new and different. Make it shoot ISO 200,000.
Oh my gosh.
Don't
Don't get the people started.
The biggest problem with an SL2 monochrome, in my opinion, would be Leica would have to make a bunch of 82 millimeter color filters. And that would be really inconvenient for everyone. So I don't know. About
67 millimeter
Okay,
color
fine.
filters.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
that. Yeah.
So, wow.
Did we miss anything else? I think we got everything.
Yeah, most of them, but we did have one here.
Oh,
that I
here.
wanted
This,
to
I like this Paolo's
mention.
question.
I'll ask you, maybe. Is there a good Paolo asks, is there a good reason to keep using the first SL, the SL601, or switching to an SL2 or an SL2-S? I guess you mean.
I can make a case either way.
I mean,
If the SL, original SL, is suiting your needs, it's giving you the resolution you need. You don't need the sensor-based stabilization. And let's say you really love the built-in GPS, keep shooting the SL601. It's awesome image quality. That being said, the SL2 offers numerous improvements in terms of the better viewfinder experience. The biggest one for me is the sensor-based stabilization. I mean, that has been a game changer because
you saw David shot at a quarter of a second handheld. I mean, come on.
you can't do that. That's not a thing you should be able to do. So being able to shoot at such slow speeds, the resolution has been nice for me as a landscape shooter, so that's a reason for me to upgrade. So between, I guess my top three, viewfinder, resolution, and sensor-based stabilization, and then stuff like multishot and just the user interface and the visual touchscreen, which I do use a lot on tripod, all of the programmable quick keys, for me have been a reason to upgrade to the SL2. But that being said, the SL601 is no slouch. It's still super fast and responsive. It still shoots, 10, 11 frames a second. It still focuses. It uses the same lenses, has the same things, and Leica continues to update it. They just issued a firmware update when they issued the one for the SL2.
3.8?
So maybe I would say if you have an SL601, maybe hold on to it and upgrade, because then you'll have an excellent backup body to boot.
You want to sign us off? I think we've done it.
Nope.
Okay, so next time. Oh, I think we're done. I think we
Jose, are you good?
Covered, we have covered everything.
Did we do it all?
And if you guys have any more questions,
Yeah, you know the drill.
call the store, talk to us, Gabe, me.
Yeah, I think something that
Kirsten,
needs to be mentioned is both Gabe and Jose are shooting with the SL2 and SL2-S professionally, and I often defer to them because they're using this stuff
More
quite a bit,
often,
and they're pushing it very hard. So if you guys have questions about how to migrate your current system into an SL system, how to get the most out of your current SL system, and you want to call us, either Jose or Gabe. You haven't met Gabe yet. He hasn't been on the show, but he's the man. These guys, they're like on the field, boots on the ground with this stuff. And it's been awesome to see them work with the gear. And they both bought their own cameras. Like, that's the testament to me.
Gabe has an SL2, but he's got his eye on an SL2-S.
Yeah, I mean, they spent their own money to buy this stuff when they could use the store stuff for free. So it's been cool.
Definitely. Yep.
All right, David.
All right.
Take us home.
Awesome. I think we covered a lot of ground today. And I think you can see as well, there's just been so many amazing developments in the SL system. It has matured in such a short period of time. So in 6 years to have this slew, an arsenal of incredible SL glass that continues to blow us away. And there's more to come. I mean, Leica's already teased the 21 and the 24 for later. And I'm sure we'll have episodes on those when they come out.
We will. We promise.
To that end, please be sure to subscribe to Red Dot Forum YouTube channel and click the notification bell so you know when we post new content. Stay tuned in to red.forum.com on the web. You can also subscribe to us at Red Dot Forum on Apple News. I am told it's only in the United States for now, but maybe that'll change.
Give us some
in the
time.
future.
Give us some time.
And if you've missed any episodes, I've got a link to the Red Dot Forum Camera Talk playlist. We have about 40 episodes covering everything, pretty much.
Almost everything. A lot of
Almost
things.
everything.
Not video, but we're getting there.
Not video, but you can go back through the archives. All of this stuff is on YouTube for you to check out. If you have any questions in the meantime, drop a comment. We monitor that even for older videos, and we'll attempt to get to those with as thorough an answer as possible. As always, huge thank you to Josh for his encyclopedic knowledge and good dog sense, who's under the table.
Oh.
Thank you to Enzo, who is sleeping
Passed
soundly
out right now, yeah.
and only mildly encroaching on my foot space. Big thanks to Jose. Wait, Jose, right there. Yep, there he is, for producing the show and feeding us questions. Thanks to Kirsten for monitoring the chat. No thanks to Peter, who's probably off, I don't know, doing something else tonight.
Having fun.
And as always, a big thanks to you guys watching us, because without you, the audience, dropping us amazing, by the way, incredible questions tonight.
This was awesome.
This
was really good.
These were like top level questions
for
that
that.
really kept us on our toes.
Yeah.
Thanks to you guys for keeping watching and tuning in. And we'll see you in a week from tonight, where we're going to be doing this setup, going over the Leica M system and seeing where we're at now in 2021 and try to make some decisions and answer your questions. And until then, have a good week, and we'll see you next Saturday.
Good night, everybody.
guys.
Good night.